Everyone, I'd like to call this meeting order to the Township Plus Lunch, June 14th, 2023. Start with roll call. Someone remind me who was first today. Councilor Levetta. Councilor Spolus, sir. Councilor Bailey.
Present.
And Councilor Hurst. Present. And this will begin our moment of reflection. That concludes our moment of reflection. So Fox, you have a position for the confirmation of the agenda, please.
The council approves the June 14th, 2023 agenda and addendum as circulated, and the council approves the addition to the agenda as follows. Consent item 6.1.4, questions received from council seeking additional information and the corresponding responses provided by staff.
Okay, move for that, please. Councilor Hurst, second by Councilor Bailey. Any questions or comments on the addendum? All in favor? That's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest today? Excellent. All right, let's just get ready the delegations. I believe we're gonna write the time stop right now. Sure. Oh, yes, please. You're going to share their presentation. Oh, I thought Crime Stoppers was including the agenda. We're not gonna. Did you want us to, sorry, did you want us to share it?
If that could be shared, that would be great. It's great. Thank you so much, Mayor, members of council, staff, and guests here and elsewhere. Thank you so much for making time on the agenda today to have me come and offer a brief update on Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington. My name is Sarah Bowers-Peter. I'm the program coordinator for Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington. And the reason I'm here today is we're doing our 35th anniversary tour, as it were. We're celebrating 35 years in the community, and it's very exciting to come to our municipal partners and let them know what we've been doing. Also refresh the partnership and let everyone know that there's lots of things that we could be doing at a local level to increase awareness about Crime Stoppers. Covered some of this. Just a refresher on Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington. Crime Stoppers is not the police. That's a common misconception about the program. We're a registered charitable organization. We have a board of directors. These are volunteers who give their time and talent, and they represent areas throughout the city of Guelph and county of Wellington. Crime Stoppers is an anonymous, confidential method of reporting crime. We offer cash rewards if an arrest is made. We don't wait until it goes through the entire court process. We rely on fundraising and donations from individuals, businesses, and organizations to pay these rewards and to operate the program. This is not funded through tax dollars, to be fair. Okay. A quick snap of our statistics, because unfortunately we're not able to discuss or disclose the specific occurrences that our tipsters provide information on that could identify them in some capacity. So we refer to our statistics. So dating back to 1988, when the program was first created, we've had over 23,000 tips to our program, had over 1,500 arrests as a result of that information. Our investigative partners have cleared more than 2,300 cases, laid more than 4,500 charges. We've recovered more than $10 million in property. So that could be vehicles or jewelry, anything like that. More than $27 million in narcotics, with the rewards approved by our board of directors in excess of $183,000. Last year alone, it was just under $5,000. So you can imagine, for a little not-for-profit, we have to make sure we can pay those rewards in an ongoing way. Okay. which is why we talk so much about the fundraising. You know, whether it's on the right-hand side there, we have volunteers who gather, and we have events. You've maybe heard of our shredding event or our mulch sales. Those are active, ongoing events that we have, as well as new opportunities that we're always open to. On the left-hand side there, you can see that, you know, a community organization recognized an initiative that Crime Stoppers wanted to develop, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So there's lots of ways that Crime Stoppers is financially supported, including individual donations through our website. Okay. So the check that you saw on the left-hand side there was one of the partners who supported the concept, 5 tips, 5 ideas, and 5 signs. I'm going to talk about other presentations that we offer, but this is the one I kind of want to shine a light on top. And I know, Sarah, we talked about this, haven't we? To have a conversation about human trafficking, which is so important in our community, but also to educate our parents, because the kids are actually aware of the grooming that's happening around human trafficking. But we wanted to create a concept that was very simple and straightforward for adults to have conversations about how to keep their children safe online and how that does connect to human trafficking, the steps that they can take to make their children safer, and then how to identify when their child is being groomed. Okay. So we created radio spots, as well as a comprehensive YouTube video series in partnership with Wellington County OPP and Guelph Police Service. Again, funded through those donations between the 100 Women Who Care Rural Wellington and 100 Men Who Give a Damn Guelph. We know that youth are aware of this online grooming. We just have to get through to the parents. A lot of parents' approach is, well, my child would never do that. And we have to get the messaging out that this is not about their child, a fault of their child. It's about predators online that are trying to engage with their children. Okay. We are going to be launching very shortly Hate the Crime. We received funding earlier this year to address hate crime that is going on in Wellington County. Okay. And we launched Fraud Talk recently, again, through funding from the Ministry of the Solicitor General. This has been tremendously well received, talking about fraud and supporting victims and offering supports through Victim Services Wellington. This grant was in partnership with Wellington County OPP as well as Victim Services Wellington. Okay. We also offer the Crime Stoppers 101 presentation, the Senior Crime Stoppers, the Student Crime Stoppers, the Human Trafficking Awareness, such as Educate Parents and Children Together, EPAC, which is an award-winning program that brings families together. We separated age-appropriate messaging and then bring them together at the end to have a conversation about keeping our kids safe. Human trafficking messaging for community members, as well as human trafficking, again, age-appropriate messaging for youth. HTNWC and SANWC was an initiative we did, again, in partnership with Wellington County OPP and Victim Services Wellington, with funding from the Ministry of the Solicitor General. Again, we did some YouTube videos, which can be found on our YouTube channel. I would strongly encourage you to check those out, and please share them if you can. And because I haven't been here for a little while, I wanted to give you an up-to-date. We have received some awards. These are from 2022. The Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers, of which we are a member, we received special project for the HTNWC Year 1 component. We also received recognition for radio, digital, online excellence, which is an open class against larger size programs, as well as the Marlon Moon Memorial Award of Excellence. We've also received awards from Crime Stoppers International, again, our media presence, as well as our specialized training in human trafficking, HTNWC and SANWC training that we developed, and productivity awards. That is actually probably the most important recognition in the bottom right corner there, because it was for total seizures, total property recovered, and total arrest. So all the other stuff that we're doing as far as awareness and engagement in the community is paying off on that bottom line. We are getting the phone calls, we are getting the results. Okay. So I'm throwing a lot of information at you, but I do come with a bit of a challenge, which is how can the municipality increase awareness of Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington? Now, I'm not going to take up a lot of time. I want to leave you with these questions and give you a chance to think about it. And hopefully you'll come back to me with some suggestions. Is there a local volunteer that you feel would be a fit for the Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington Board of Directors? We are accepting volunteers right now, and it would be a great opportunity to have more representation in the south end of Wellington County. Is there a presentation we could offer to council or staff that you feel would be beneficial now that we've kind of run through that whole list of what we're doing? Is there a partnership we could develop between the municipality and Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington? Is there an initiative that you would like to develop with us? Is there an area you would like to see Crime Stoppers assist in the municipality? I know for some municipalities, it's been bylaw enforcement, everything from illegal dumping to mischief and vandalism. And are you following us on social media? Because that's the best way to find out what Crime Stoppers Gulf Wellington is doing and to keep up to date on the latest crime of the week information. Again, not wanting to take a lot of our time today with this, but just food for thought moving forward. And I want to say thank you so much for your time and being able to have a moment and connect with you. I'm open to questions you may have.
That was speedy, excellent.
I try my best. I know what it's like at council, so it's like.
Right, well, thank you for that presentation. I think it's excellent work that Crime Stoppers is doing in our community and all the communities. It's my belief that, you know, Puss Lynch is a bit of a target for some crime due to their proximity to the 401. I mean, they can commit the crime beyond the 401 and be miles or kilometers away in an instant. So, you know, it's good to educate people on how to help prevent the crime and not make it as opportunistic for those people that open up to council. That's good.
Thank you. Well, thanks for coming today. It was great to hear about what you've been working on, and it's great to see those statistics as well. So, and I was particularly glad to see the little piece on the human trafficking component. And just the, you know, talking about education, not only to the children, but also to the parents. I think that really is a key piece. But I mean, I'm glad you touched on it, because just at our most recent council meeting, we did have a delegation from another group in our community who is also concerned with that issue and trying to shine light and raise awareness and education and doing a lot of the initiatives that you're trying to do as well. They also talked about adding signage throughout the county, which I saw in your presentation. You've also had signs. And we also have our local Safe Communities group sort of working on these things as well. And at our last council meeting, Councillor Bailey sort of brought up the point that this is an important issue in our community, and we have different groups that are all trying to work on it in their own sort of separate ways. But it would probably be much more effective if there was some collaboration between those groups and we could come out with some consistent messaging that all of those groups are using to get the word out and educate. So I guess with that being said, I'm curious if there are opportunities or if Crime Stoppers will be willing to work sort of in conjunction, collaboration with these other groups to help really shine a light on that particular issue, which is, again, due to our proximity to 401, definitely something that we're all concerned with.
Absolutely. And as you can see through our grant partnerships, we do work closely with not just our investigative partners, but also those agencies that have frontline experience and hands-on knowledge of what's happening with victims. So Victim Services Wellington, Guelph Wellington Women in Crisis. We do not work directly with victims. We're trying to stop the crime. So we very much feel that you let the people who are the experts in the subject matter speak to those parts of the overall messaging. So when you look at the information that we have online with our videos, it's all informed from the victim's perspective. You know, it's not Crime Stoppers saying this is what's happening. It's, you know, we're bringing this to you from the Victim Services Wellington viewpoint. I believe in collaboration wholeheartedly. I think that's the best way to do it. I know, especially when it comes to human trafficking, there's a lot of talk about silos and people working independently or organizations working on their own. It often leads to duplication. It can also lead to some really frustrating and dark stuff as far as, you know, feeling territorial and ego ahead of the cause. So what we always advocate for is bringing people together, everybody collaborating and making sure the message is representative of all the agencies that are participating.
Awesome. That's good to hear. And just to your point there, you have a point about, is there a local volunteer you feel would be a good fit? I do know through
We're pointing.
possibly Councillor Bailey, but also, again, this group that came to present to us last council meeting, sorry, that was through Guelph Rotary, and they also have developed a subcommittee that they call themselves Eradicating Human Trafficking. And I know that there are some residents from Puss Lynch on that committee as well. So that might be somewhere to reach out to find those members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Spoulos?
Yes, well, thank you, and congratulations on 35 years of excellent service to the community. A couple of questions regarding the presentations. Are they available online, or do we summon or talk to you and ask you to come into the presentation? Like you have the fraud one you did in March, and you have the date when you did February.
So these are ongoing presentations. The date on that is a little misleading. We got the funding for that in earlier this year. We're actually gonna be launching it in the next couple of weeks. It's supposed to be in June. So we are working on that presently. Any presentation, you can contact us through the website, csgw.tips, and contact us and arrange for a presentation. And whether it's a 555 presentation or the Crime Stoppers 101 presentation, we do it in person simply because we do find that there are, or online, but in-person presence, because we do find there are a lot of questions and misconceptions that come up about Crime Stoppers. We're still, 35 years later, trying to convince people that we're not the police, that we don't have our own little team of investigators that are going to follow up on their tips. So if we do find that having it in real time really does help.
So is there a minimum audience you're looking for?
I don't want to tell you how few people I've presented to. The way I look at it is, even one or two people, it's one or two people more than knew about Crime Stoppers this morning. So it's worth making the effort to present. It's always better to have a large audience. Of course, you want to maximize your time, but we'd be open to entertaining any size audience.
Okay, and last question, you have two presentations here. Are you working on some other ones as well?
Oh, we have multiple presentations. So we have the Crime Stoppers 101, human trafficking, the range of human trafficking presentations. We have seniors Crime Stoppers, we have fraud talk, the 555, the EPAC presentations on different themes. Like I say, when we started the human trafficking, nobody knew anything about how it was impacting kids. Now it's part of the curriculum in schools, and children are being taught about human trafficking and the awareness and connection to cyber safety. So we're not focusing as much on that as we are now backing it up to the parents who are in complete denial that their children are being approached.
I could see that be very beneficial.
Yeah. So lots of options. Yeah.
Great, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Bailey?
Thank you, Sarah, for coming today. And congratulations for all the awards on social. I do follow on social
Yes.
media. It was, you guys were very excited about the awards that
Yes.
you were presented with. So congratulations on that. I did have a question just about the board of directors, and is there any representation from Wellington South on the board currently?
One of our longest serving board members is from Puslinch.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, that's great. It's great to
But
hear.
that doesn't mean there's not room for more.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a big table.
It's good to know that at least we've got that door open,
Yes.
so that can start to spread, I would hope. And then how often does the board change? Is it sort of every 4 years, or is it just an ongoing?
Where unlike council, you don't serve a term. We will keep you as long as you want to stay.
Okay,
And that's actually the joy of volunteerism with community groups, is the fact that life changes. We have people that can stay for a certain period of time that have to move on or for personal, professional reasons. We do have the requirement that you must live or work in the county of Wellington or city of Guelph to apply to be on our board of directors. There's an application process. You do have to have a criminal background check. And the board has to accept the application. You can appreciate, similar to council, there are some reasons why you might want to know who's coming on to the board of directors of Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington. But
Yeah.
it is a perfected system now, and it has worked very well for a number of years.
so then that kind of leads me into, we have a new youth advisory committee in the township. And I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity for maybe a member of the youth advisory to get involved with Crime Stoppers. Is there a certain age that you would?
Yeah, you have to be 18 years of age or older, again, because of some of the topics that we discuss, and I know some Crime Stoppers programs do have youth Crime Stoppers. We don't at this time. That's not to say that we couldn't, but just right now, we don't have that particular option available to us.
Yeah, just thinking in the future, that might be some
Yeah.
sort of really neat partnership, or even having a presentation coming to the
Absolutely.
committee. Yeah, that might be really good. And just for council's awareness, I have reached out to Sarah, and so we're going, and I reached out to the principal at Aberfoyle Schools. So we are going to be having a presentation in November 2023 over at the school. And right now, my intention was to have the 555, unless the EPACT would be
We can
better,
decide, yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
But anyways, we'll start that, and then I'm hoping maybe we can offer you know, some other times and have Sarah's group come. Just one other, the sign that you had in the slide deck there, where is that located?
That particular sign is located just south of Mount Forest. So if you're southbound out of Mount Forest, it is on the east side of the highway, the left-hand side of the highway. So it is, and that was just a one-off sign for that grant. We don't have those throughout the county or anything like that. That was just the one location.
I guess I'm more curious just how that site location was decided upon, and is it on private land? Is it on county?
It was really simple. It was what was available to us. Trying to get billboard space was very challenging at the time. And certainly for the year contract that we required through the grant. So at that point, that's the only location we could get. I mean, Highway 6, we all know throughout Highway 6, it's highly trafficked. So, you know, visibility was great. I would love to have had 5 more signs and put them throughout the county. But because of the availability through the sign company that we were working with, that was the only location that was available at the time.
Was it on Highway 6, like you're saying?
Yeah.
So in the right of way of Highway 6?
Yeah.
Well, you must have contacted the MTO for permissions or somebody did.
It's through the sign company that has the billboard rights to that location. Stellar, I believe, is the company. Stellar.
So it'd be easier if it's on county or township right of ways. It'd be as much red tape.
And I didn't get into that in this presentation, again, not wanting to take up too much of council's time, but we do have our own comprehensive road sign partnership with the Crime Stoppers messaging. We just rebranded it literally 2 weeks ago, if I didn't have a chance to get it in this deck. But we do have messaging going out. We do not have human trafficking specific messaging because you have to be really careful what that imaging and messaging looks like. You know, some of the stuff that we put on social media, we wouldn't get away with putting on a public, like you say, on a Highway 6, it would not be well received. So we have to be careful with that. But as far as road sign partnerships, the County of Wellington has been amazing and supportive in allowing us to have access to locations that the county maintains the signs and, you know, takes them down for us when we have to put up a new sign because of damage or vandalism.
And then I guess I just have a follow-up question
Sure.
with, say it was the Ontario Crime Stoppers
Mhm.
group. Is there any discussion or their plans, do you know, with any kind of signage along 401?
Not through the Ontario Association. I actually sit on that board of directors as well. Their role right now, they've gone through a bit of transition and they just had a new board of directors elected. So I'm hoping there's going to be more focus on messaging such as that. But at this point in time, no.
I would think that would be a high traffic
Yes.
area to target.
Yes.
Messaging. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Councilor Hurst?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I think actually a lot of the comments that I had have already been touched. I think the Councilor Goyda made a lot of really good points in terms of just the overlap that I think we're starting to see. And this is all really good initiatives, I think. Yeah, just the making sure that there's a degree of consistency. So maybe a couple of comments. After seeing the deck and the briefing notes, I do think you've got a fantastic website and social media aspect. So I did scope through that. And I think my comment would be is whomever's responsible for that does a really good job. And it's just about being consistent with those messaging and often, even if there's a new initiative, it's never bad to reinforce some of the older ones just as a repeat, because this is all really good content. So I think that's one. I think the other just thought process I had when you were giving your presentation and going through the briefing was, you know, how does Crime Stoppers as an organization stay relevant 35 years on, right? And I think the two that you teased out, the first one being the human trafficking component, certainly that's been raised as a more nouveau type issue. Not to say that wasn't an issue in the past, but I think the awareness of it is certainly more in the whole aspect of cybersecurity. But I think the one, I think even for our municipality here, I think as the mayor noted that the types of crime are maybe somewhat different in our community as compared to say Mount Forest or where have you. And I think that would be one where I'd be curious to see, you know, the types of programming that Crime Stoppers delivers overlaid with what the actual crime rates are and making sure that there's a degree of consistency with program delivering to actually what's happening in the regional community. And I could almost make the observation what you deliver in Wellington North may be somewhat different than what is delivered in the southern part of the county. Yeah, I'll leave that with you guys to think through. But I think the one that really occurred to me too when I was hearing it is fraud from the seniors. And I think I read, it was in the Global Mail a couple of weeks ago, around the biggest threat to seniors' financial viability isn't downturn in markets or increase in interest rates. It's fraud. And I think that was a really interesting one. So I'm really happy to see the type of programming you guys are delivering to focus on those aspects, because that is a newer type of crime, if you will. So just commending you on evolving your programming to meet the needs of the sector, you know, and if I go back to like my youth, you know, it was, remember the Crime Stoppers ads were like smashing car windows and stuff like that, right? It's not that doesn't happen now, but I think I commend you in evolving the programs to meet the needs of society. So that's really it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate that feedback. It's always great to hear from someone outside the program or outside of Crime Stoppers what they're seeing. And as far as the approach that we've taken locally, most Crime Stoppers, when I started a number of years ago, it was very much a reactive program. And then we were relying on our police and investigative partners to do the community education and crime awareness and evolving crimes, emergent crimes, that type of thing. So over time, I felt it was important to actually, you know, pivot a little bit and make sure that we were, you know, taking the opportunity, especially with human trafficking. We found out about that in 2017. And it's like, okay, if we're going to talk about human trafficking, or sorry, if we're going to talk about Crime Stoppers, which that's what my job is, to keep talking about Crime Stoppers, we're also going to make it a parallel message that human trafficking is such a significant problem in our community that people aren't aware of. And we can run those messages at the same time, still doing service to Crime Stoppers, but shining the light on emerging crime. And that's, you know, to your point about fraud. You know, I'm doing a presentation tomorrow in Fergus, you know, to seniors with my colleague Liz Kent from Victim Services Wellington, because there are so many seniors, but it's open to everyone. Like, it's not just a seniors message. Fraud is actually increasing for all age demographics right now. Thank you for your observations.
Great, thank you. I see the township being able to help with maybe offering up our signs. You know, we have maybe a ticker tape, or also our baseball diamonds. I'm envisioning a banner with the human trafficking and Crime Stoppers on either the outfield fence or wherever it's most visible. It may be right field fence, because that's where the bleachers are. But I think that I'll have to ask the clerk what we need to do to authorize that. If that can just be
I
handled.
love that vision. That's great. Thank you.
Also, we're going to be discussing this Postage Community Guide. I wasn't paying attention. I was just making sure that it wasn't already in here. And I don't see it. So later in the agenda, I'd like to bring it up that we include Crime Stoppers.
Amazing.
I'm making an assumption that this is going to be approved. So.
Okay.
Also, I'd like to see if it's possible that we have your presentations on our website. Now, we could probably, the easiest way is probably a link to your site.
Okay.
However, my school of thought is, you know, the more rabbit holes you have to go down to get to the information, it might not reach its target audience. So if you're willing to share the presentations, and I don't, again, I'll ask the staff to comment, if we can host those presentations. I wrote down fraud against seniors as well, that if they come to pay their taxes or get a burn permit, and all of a sudden, you know, the banner switches to Crime Stoppers, and it's just one click, maybe two at the most to get to your presentations, and might get more uptake on not taking away from what you're doing, but
Sure.
the goal is to hit more. And I guess the last thing I'll do more of a comment is fraud has many different tentacles. I feel it's easy just to send an email out, hey, I'm stuck in Cuba or wherever. I'm not picking on Cuba, send me money. But
Yes.
there's also misrepresentations on product that you're buying. I have a family member that's made 2 purchases of significant money. And, you know, they might have, say it was a jet ski, and it shows up, it's this big, and you spend a lot. So there's, and I feel that the seniors are targeted for that as well. It's not just, I need help, but it's misrepresentation online. So the whole component of education about the fraud that they can encounter, it's so easy to now purchase things that, and I agree, like that was an interesting fact. Councillor Hershey brought up that the biggest threat to their financial stability is the fraud, not the market conditions. So.
And they usually lose 33% more than non-seniors in frauds as well.
Yeah. So it's all great news. So I don't know, Ms. Roy, if you want to speak to some comments, I mean.
Certainly. So there's I don't see any concerns with the sports field banners and working to see what we could do with that. Also, I don't see any concerns with using our website as another tool to create awareness. All of that is doable.
I'll maybe just go around the table and make sure the council does want to add to it. The only thing I will say though, is if we put up banners, I don't want them looking terrible. If they start to get faded and ripped, they need to be replaced because we want to ensure it looks professional. Whatever that entails, once a year they get replaced, I don't know, but it's.
And were you wanting us to create the banner, like you would give us specs for it and we would create it, or what would you?
You guys can hash that out.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure somebody's gonna have to go measure the fence and work with the director of public works, but yeah, I mean, obviously it can't be too small, you won't be able to see it, but
Right,
if there's costing involved that staff are not comfortable with, they can obviously come back to us and ask for those approvals, but these will get it going in the right directions.
perfect.
Wrong side. The comments on
Yeah,
that.
just to build on that too, we also have the advertising opportunities on
Yeah,
the arena. So that might be another option to get as well, but I think that's a great idea.
I agree with all of the other suggestions. Agree.
just leave it with staff, and if there's a monetary component that needs to come back, well, definitely parts of this we can get implemented sooner. And last thing is, I believe we're trying to get a new sign in front of the PCC, and I'm pretty excited for when it comes in. We might be able to have more opportunity for advertising and awareness, and this is where I feel these community concerns belong around these types of signs and facilities. Resolution.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I heard a number of other comments from council too, so I've incorporated those just for council's consideration. So the council receives a delegation by Sarah Bowers Peter, Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington, regarding the program update and request for partnership for information. And the council directs staff to connect Crime Stoppers with the Rotary Eradicating Human Trafficking Committee to collaborate on spreading awareness regarding human trafficking. And the council requests that staff work with Crime Stoppers to arrange for a presentation to the Youth Advisory Committee. And that council directs staff to work with Crime Stoppers on the opportunity to include a banner at the township sports fields and or the arena boards. And finally, that council directs staff to add Crime Stoppers information and presentation material on the township website.
We're gonna move to that, please. Councilor Spillis, Councilor Bailey, last chance. Pardon me?
Which.
Well, I'm gonna bring it up when we deal with it.
Fair enough.
Don't let me forget. Okay, all in favor? Let's carry. Excellent.
Thank you so much. If I could ask for one last thing, we could do a photo.
It's all some money.
Yeah. I'm allowed to do that. If we could do a photo with the flag, that would be great. Thank you.
What flag? Here, that flag?
Fine.
How are we gonna hang it?
Well,
We just, if you get a group shot, everybody can hold it, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Facing right.
No. Thank you so much. Brilliant, thank you. Thank you, very much appreciated.
Okay, Yana. We're up.
bring your flag.
Yeah.
Did you bring your flag?
She's got her pin up.
Yeah, you're shorter than I am. No, I just wanted to.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you for inviting me to present to your council today. It's been a few years since I've been here, and it's great timing actually, because we just approved our county economic development 3-year plan. And we have the pleasure of working with former councillor Matthew Ballmer sitting on that committee who approved that plan. So let me share some information about what county economic development activities are underway so that yourselves as councillors are in the know of opportunities that may arise from some of the projects that we do have. I'll look to you, Courtney, maybe to, thank you.
Just trying to get on the right screen here.
So I won't waste your time. I'll get into the definition of economic development. So economic development is the county's programs and policies and activities that seek to improve the economic well-being and quality of life for our communities. So such that businesses have what they need to succeed locally and that our communities are attractive for residents and for visitors alike. You're missing some nice pictures of authentic pictures of Puslinch businesses like Bray Ridge and Royal Canin is on the second slide, but I'll continue going for the essence of time. So in terms of programs and services, we as a team take on projects that are applicable to all of Wellington County, whether that be strategic planning or programming, like organizing a corporate visitation program, for example, or developing events. We had an agri-food processing networking event, or we host a food fest, for example. The work we undertake looks beyond municipal boundaries to align goals that were established by all member municipalities. And a good example of that is the community improvement plan, which Puslinch has as well. We across the board look at using land strategically, diversifying the economy and providing housing options. So our economic development team elevates the work undertaken, next slide, thank you, undertaken in the individual municipalities like the shop local promotion, which can be more effective at a regional level. We lead larger countywide initiatives to leverage larger opportunities like the broadband build out, our Taste Road program, or our successful $10 million Smart Cities circular economy project. And we fill the gaps where member municipalities do not have the funds to participate in certain initiatives, do not have the staff, or do not have the expertise, or where projects are just better and is suited at a regional level, like investment attraction. Next slide, thank you. So economic development is all about collaboration, as with many things. We have great working relationships with our member municipalities and partners, and we greatly rely on these. It was actually this group that created the 25,000 that's available to each municipality on an annual basis to implement business retention and expansion activities. And it's been a pleasure working with your CAO and your treasurer as well on these. I should mention that this group meets on a monthly basis, the first Tuesday of every month at our local community futures. And you'll see that aside from agencies and municipalities, we also have the province represented. So various ministries are at this table, which is great for us because we can find out about new political direction or funding opportunities. But it's really great for us as well because we're able to present some of the realities that we're seeing on the ground in Wellington County to the province. Next slide. So we also provide data and we have access to various sources and we compile socioeconomic information for various reasons. We help with the county's credit review on an annual basis to ensure the county continues to have a good rating on which the member municipalities can in turn borrow at a lower rate. We provide data for yourselves as well. And of course, for our internal project planning purposes. So if we look at Puslinch relative to the other member municipalities, it's a smaller population and a lower projected growth, striking high number of high earning households. And then obviously no surprise when we look at those factors in housing prices, we end up with an average older population. And this again correlates with relative to the rest of the county, a lower population of the county's labor force. So those are the individuals that live here, but not necessarily are working in the county. Looking from a business side, Puslinch has 246 businesses out of the approximately 3,600 in the county, but they provide a lot of jobs to the region. And those numbers have grown quite steadily since 2017. And some of them are also the highest corporate taxpayers in the county. So let's look at the top industries. Slide, please. So in the last 5 years, the top industries in Puslinch, you can see are listed there. And manufacturing gained 600 new jobs, transportation and warehousing gained 164, and then construction, accommodation, food services, wholesale trade, and then the professional, scientific, and technical services as well. If we look at the top occupations, next slide. that are growing in Puslinch in that same time period. You can see that transportation and heavy equipment operators grew by 177 jobs, maintenance and equipment operator trades, 167 jobs. And then we have other growing industries, occupations such as industrial, electrical and construction trades, sales reps, processing and manufacturing, machine operators, and then admin functions as well. So the majority in the top 6 are in the trades. And if you're curious about where the jobs have been in decline, it's agriculture, it's recreation, it's the arts industry and entertainment, and it's also admin support. So now let's quickly go over what economic development provides in terms of support. So the first is workforce, not in any particular order, but we work together with agencies, for example, the Career Education Council. We just hosted a youth career event in the north. So we were focusing one day on young people wanting to enter jobs that were relevant to businesses that have openings in the north and businesses that are looking to grow in the north, and we want to keep them. And then the next day we opened it up to the general public. Similarly, we helped the Southern Lions Club on their May Trade Tracks event. And that was also focused obviously on the skilled trades, and that was a great event. We also have a dedicated function, a talent attraction and newcomer retention position. So that's direct employer support, working, for example, right now with those in the healthcare industry, as well as the trades. And then also hosting Wellington County's first multicultural festival, which we're excited to have in September at the museum. And then we're also developing in the eyes of information resources. So compiling statistics and public perceptions about specific industries, which you're all aware of, surrounding elements such as wages and workplace culture and industry specific public image representation. And then the next slide. This year, we are going back on the streets and meeting with businesses, and that's our intent. And yesterday we had a good meeting with the mayor and Councillor Balmer and Councillor Sipoulis and staff at Economic Development to talk about what that would look like in Puslinch and getting a little bit of an idea of the local context and priorities. And we're really looking forward to presenting a plan to Puslinch to talk about what business support looks like in the township over the next couple of years. And then, as I mentioned, we had the 25,000 available on an annual basis. And this has been great since 2014. 200,000 has come to the township to help with, for example, the commercial sector municipal servicing study, and then signage as well as the CIP. Then we have our own community improvement program, and we have $160,000 available to that. We are not nearing use of all of that money, so I encourage you to spread the word about that. We have opened up our CIP this year, working with all the member municipalities to make it more strategic, make it more available to businesses and more relevant to things that are happening with respect to land and buildings in the community. So we're looking at housing and climate change and agriculture and industrial projects incentives this year. Next slide. Attainable housing is also a great priority at the county level. There's a dedicated housing task force with senior staff and elected officials, and we have several activities underway. We've added housing incentives to our CIP program. So in addition to the 20,000 that you can get for renovating a unit, there's also the opportunity to add a tax incremental equivalency grant should that unit be offered at below market rent. And then we've developed a marketing campaign to combat NIMBYism, and then we're looking at metrics to track growth. And then also obviously pushing the opportunity for landowners, property owners to add additional residential units to their property so that we can help with our goal of increasing stock and increasing the diversity of housing in the community. And then Experience Wellington. So we developed our first ever tourism strategy this year, and tourism will be one of the largest economic drivers going forward. It's no longer a nice to have. It's typically the front door to investment and talent attraction now. For every 20 people that say, I love hiking at Starkey Hill or going riding at John Mel's or that delicious Danish restaurant you have,
one of them will decide to locate here or to spread the word about how beautiful Plus Lunch is. So we have, as I said, this strategy in place, and we've been putting a lot of effort to position ourselves as a visitor destination and working with businesses on their own product development. And as you know, well-known tourism destinations in Plus Lunch are the Antique Market, the Mill, Emerald Lake, Donkey Sanctuary, and the Clintox Water Ski School. Came up with a lot of commentary from people when we did the research, especially when we incorporated things like reviews from TripAdvisor and social media and such. But you also have Flow State Bike Company, which has been named the best bike-friendly business in Ontario. And then I also mentioned Bray Ridge offers alpaca, yoga, and farm tours as well. And just on the next slide, talking about what things we're going to be focusing on with respect to tourism strategy, we have seasonal experience marketing campaigns. We are partnering with relevant organizations to provide workshops and learning opportunities for those operators. We are continue to grow our tourism business mailing list, and then we're doing a visitor map as well countywide this year. And then we're supporting product development in specific niche areas. So for example, they're creating cycling itineraries for Wellington County. And we do recognize that a lot of businesses in Plus Lunch have a Guelph or Cambridge address. So we are addressing this and making sure that they have the right location pin on Google Maps. And our business directory is very well used. We're happy with the fact that it was extremely highly used during the pandemic, and it's something that we keep up to date. So encouraging businesses to make sure that they're on their business directory is of their advantage as well. And then Courtney, if you wouldn't mind just clicking on that to showcase that we do have videos. We have several of them. One of them that I'd like to showcase here is the retro experiences that you can have in Wellington County, which features some Plus Lunch businesses. We're surprised at how extremely popular videos, especially like this, it's a minute long and it captures people's attention. It makes them want to make that trip and have that own experience here. So I mentioned we have a few different videos, so feel free to check those out. And then we also have our Shop Local Taste Real program. So it's creating business to business connections to strengthen local supply chains and product development. We have many businesses like the Farmers Market, Sweet Bee, Corwin Herbs, Creef Hills, Harvest Hop and Malt, Marcy's Berries, Tuckamore Wildleaf Farm. We have many businesses in the community that we're supporting in terms of their activities as well. And then we facilitate the Farmers Market Working Group, and then we have the Farmers Market Box program as well. And then I mentioned the website and social media really is a hub of activity for how to promote Plus Lunch and Wellington County. Next, we also have Ride Well. So this is a pilot that we started 5 years ago. We'd love for you to, and I will be dropping off some postcards that I was remiss to bring with me today that have a specific code and a discount for people in the community. It's a pilot, it's a ride sharing program on demand, door to door. We are seeing about 500-600 rides per month, and that is growing. It's only available during the week, but as I said, it is a pilot. One can book on the mobile app, and we have further funding from the province for another 2 years to continue that service. And then we have tourism signage, just increasing awareness of local businesses. We have, I believe, 48 total signage locations and 36 businesses on that countywide project as well. And then the next slide is speaking to our other activities. We receive inquiries that come in, and then we filter those down to the municipalities where relevant. We have 3 different newsletters for businesses, for tourism, and then specifically for agri-food and agri-food tourism as well. So if you are not on that mailing list and it might be of interest to you, please don't hesitate to join up. And thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Great presentation. When Schneider's closed down, seems like an eternity ago now. AgDev stepped in and provided support to the employees. I don't know if that's something you normally do, but could you maybe speak to that a little bit as well? It was Schneider's, right? Where we,
It was, yes, thank you. So we were in touch with their corporate office in the US and then asked if we could provide support specifically to those individuals who were going to be no longer working at that facility. And that is something that we certainly feel is important. I mean, those are our residents, our employees, and if there's an opportunity to bridge them over to get a job somewhere else in the community, that's something that is definitely economic development.
well, we really appreciate that support for those folks. Going to that meeting yesterday, we were mentioning to you some tourist destination types of things within the community. And I don't believe we mentioned Emerald Lake. Is that on your radar? It's down on the Gore Road. And the other one is Fletcher Creek Conservation Area. It's a very large property that people can, there's actually even parking at that one. It's limited, but there is parking. It provides people the opportunity to go for quite a walk through nature there. Just want to add those to you. I want to ask you, the 25K per year for AgDev, what can that be utilized for?
Thank you. Anything business retention expansion related. So the previous projects that you have had been perfectly in line with that definition. I think if there's something that may arise from maybe not this year's consultations that we have with the business community, but perhaps next year's that you want to keep in mind, and maybe that will give the municipality some idea for next year. But I think the projects that the township has come up with so far have been perfectly in line with what we're hoping to achieve.
Perfect, thank you. All right, Councillor Goyda.
I just want to first of all say thank you so much for coming. I'm so thrilled to have you here. I think it is great for us to hear firsthand all of these things that are going on that we may not otherwise be aware of. Just hearing you talk, like it starts, you know, ideas moving, and it's just, there's so much good work happening that I maybe wouldn't even know of. So I'm just really thankful you're here and we're able to share all that with us. I just had a couple questions. You did mention, I didn't know this stat either, that there's 246 businesses in the township, and that they provide a lot of jobs, and some of them are some of the highest tax paying. And right at the beginning, you said that one of the initiatives or one of the definitions of economic development is that businesses have what they need to be successful. And you talked a little bit about consultation and engagement, but I'm just wondering if or how we can better find out what it is that our local businesses here in West Lynch actually do need to be successful, and what we can be doing to help them. Is that part of the business retention and expansion, or is that a different exercise altogether? How can we kind of pull that information out of them?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. That's an excellent question. So yes, it is part of this investigative work that we're going to be doing over the course of the next year. And it really is about thanking businesses for doing business and for choosing to do business in West Lynch. And it's also about understanding what they do and at what point in their life cycle they are and what kind of supports they might need, but also, just like me today, letting them know about all the resources that are available to them as a business in the community. So we are going to be having an opportunity to collect data, information, lots of it anecdotal. We want to be doing these face to face. None of this is going to be, people are surveyed out. And yesterday's conversation was really good in terms of getting staff to understand what kinds of questions we can be posing that might be relevant for the township as well. So we'll be putting a plan together and then sharing it with the mayor and maybe share it as well.
Okay, that's really great. And then I just also wanted to, you talked about the Ride Girl program. And it was interesting, in the fall, when I was doing some campaigning, I actually went through, we have the Mini Lakes development. And actually several of them asked if we would ever consider doing like a city bus or something like that, that would take them to doctor's appointments, grocery shopping and things like that. There are several elderly community members that live there. And when I told them that we actually do have a program that would probably fit those needs through the Ride program, many of them didn't know that it was available. And so I was just wondering if there's any ways of kind of targeting that information, that just letting people know in those specific communities about the program that is there, so that maybe that it would be more well used by those particular communities.
Thank you, through you, Jen. I think that's a great idea. It's been tough. We've been trying to spread the word, and everybody has a concern about public transit, or know somebody has a concern about public transit, but it's difficult because we're rural. But we do have this pilot, so we do want to spread the word about it as much as we can. So if there are, I've noted down Mini Lakes, but if there are other communities that we could speak to or drop postcards on, or drop these discounts so we can track who's using it, please let us know. I'd be happy to drop flyers.
Okay, thanks. I have a question to have.
Councilor Spillis?
This was nice, talking to you yesterday. You shared some ideas. A couple of questions here. One is basically a comment. You talk about retaining, expanding businesses, but I think a flip side of that is attracting businesses. Is there a similar type of endeavor to work on attracting new businesses?
There is, thank you through you, Chair. It's right now, it's one step back from that, and it's understanding our existing infrastructure and our land, our employment lands, future employment lands, and what makes sense where. I think this exercise will be helpful because it'll help with building that, continuing to build that case of why it's so advantageous to be in Wellington County or in Portland specifically. Speaking to employers to understand their perspective. So yes, and business attraction is an ongoing exercise, but it'll be refined through this project, and then also through looking at it from a planning lens as well.
The second question is relating to the 25K cap. If we find a project that's really good for the township, let's say it's 40-50K, would that cap be considered to be raised for that one particular matter?
Thank you, through you. I think that's something that would come to the Economic Development Committee of Council, and perhaps it's somehow using a future year's amount of dedicating it or not. Maybe it's a project that's so worthwhile that that committee makes that decision to approve it in that year.
It's good. That's fine.
Ms. Bailey?
Thank you. Thanks for coming today. I think I heard you say at the beginning that there were corporate visitation options. Is that what you had said? And what does that mean? What?
Thank you, Councillor, through you. It's so we have organized on behalf of municipalities a corporate visitation. So going out to visit a business, inviting staff and council from a municipality, and exactly that, talking about having that business talk about some questions that the township may have. Why are you here? What do you do? How many people do you employ? How can we help? And maybe even talking about the ones that we have reached out to are ones that have specifically used our CIP or other programs that we have had underway.
Yeah, I would be really interested in something like that. We've done bus tours for sort of projects and for what's coming up in the year ahead for us, but you know, doing some sort of tour within the community and being exposed to some of the businesses, I think would be really good. And then it's something we can talk to and talk about from a personal experience. So something like that, I think, is really valuable for helping with economic development. Just to comment, I had actually attended the trade tracks with my son this year, and it was really well done. It was fantastic. What came out of that was how can Lynch maybe support that program next year. So I don't know how we can be supporting it, but when it comes time to planning for that next year, maybe if you can reach out or let us know what supports we can provide. I don't know what, what the need is, but I think it was a really great program and it would be good to, encourage that to keep going. For the business retention and expansion, what will the outreach look like? You mentioned wanting to do face-to-face kind of stuff. Is that going to be like something planned in the community center, people coming, or are you going out?
Thank you through you. We're going to be visiting businesses at their place of work. And asking them some questions, and I had mentioned not doing a full scale business retention expansion exercise, which can take up to an hour and a half. That's not our intent. Our intent is to meet on site and to ask some specific questions and to offer resources.
Is there any value in doing something where you're here and they come, come here and it's more of a public forum and it's kind of this is what we can provide and just get the conversation going, and even members of the public, coming and hearing what all the options are?
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr. Chair. What we found is that, yes, we can do that. If it's industry specific, it makes more sense if it's tailored to them. We just find going to their place of work and speaking to them face to face and not like using their time wisely is easier. It's tough to get everybody at the same time as you know, but there's a variety of options. I would suggest that we have these discussions, and then from that do, as you said, like you're one step ahead already, like having those information sessions where maybe they can network, or maybe we can discuss supply chain things within a specific industry, or maybe we can have an information session, or we can have a corporate visitation program where council can attend as well.
Fantastic. I think that's great. I think networking is key to a lot of success. And I do know even two restaurants in Morriston were sharing produce pickup, together. So already they're collaborating and they're doing something that's probably saving them some money, and partnering up as well, even though they're separate businesses. So that connection I think is really good. Just a question about the CIP, the Community Improvement Plan. Is there any distinction between a heritage building versus a non-heritage building in terms of funding? Is there any incentives for the heritage building to, I don't know, have more funding?
And that's a good question. Through you, Chair. And so the county has its own CIP, which is essentially you can double up on the small things and then you can get some big things. There's nothing specifically speaking to heritage within the county CIP, but member municipalities like Center Wellington that have a large number of heritage buildings. I would have to look at that and get back to you whether or not there's something specific. I would imagine there is within their CIP.
Just think that's important too, to be supporting those that are, trying to work within a heritage building, because the cost can be, more to try to be fixing that up. And just a question, you had posted on the one slide that Westland had 3 ARUs. When was that as of?
June 2022.
Okay. It just surprised me that it was, anyway. I think that's all. In terms of the Ride Well, I do know Mini Lakes has like a welcome package that they give out to all the new members. So it might be really great to have the Ride Well little coupons or info or whatever in those welcome packages for that development. I think that would be fantastic, or even posted in their mailroom. They have a communal mailroom. Yeah. Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Hurst?
Yeah, thanks. This was a lot of really good information. I have to admit, I was going through my notes here and it's full of smokes. It's a lot to digest. So I appreciate that. And I think maybe a couple of questions. In a previous meeting, we were talking about the economic significance of the Highway 6 corridor and the whole bypass aspect of advocating for that. And I'm just curious, from an economic development standpoint at the county level, have you guys been engaged in those type of conversations around the economic benefits of advocating for a Highway 6 bypass? And if we haven't, I think that like just some of the statistics you show, I think add economic weight to a compelling argument. So I'm just curious if you've been engaged in that dialogue.
Thank you, Councillor Hurst, through you, Chair. Yes, extensively so. I believe it was 2016, 17, 18. Providing presentations, having the minister here and showing him the realities and the businesses, yes.
And since that point in time, have we updated that statistics and kind of refreshed that narrative at all?
Thank you through, you know.
Okay. I think that would be a great, like, when I see all the data that you can share, I think it would be a really good thing for us, maybe like, even just for staff, maybe just circle back on that, because I don't, in a prior meeting, we shared some of the agriculture relevance from a business side, but I think just for the general, all the businesses, regardless of the sector, I think I see that as really good data because it's timely, it's reputable, it's impactful and everything there. I think one of the other questions I had was, and Council Bailey touched on it. I think there's just so much really good information that you shared today. I quite like the idea of an open house. We did one with our Heritage Committee and I thought it went quite well, but it's not so much around just specifically you can get money for this type of thing, but it's the tourism aspects. It's the recreation aspects. It's everything that kind of comes within that. And I'm not sure if there's been experiences in other municipalities within the township, but just that you could have probably presented for 2 hours of all the stuff that goes on type of thing in a bit more detail. But I think, I really see this as like, let's showcase all the really good work that's going on here and how we do that in a bite-sized manner so that it doesn't get overwhelming for people is, I think we need to figure that out type of thing. But I like the idea of going to people's businesses. That's very personal, that they can talk about their livelihood. But I think at a higher level, it's just letting the community know all the programming and activities. So I don't get to an end point today type of thing, but I'd like to see something in that realm because I think all this work is fantastic. Just the last one, I quite like the heritage aspect. I think that's one that Councilor Bailey noted. I think for me that's it's important. I think we want to make sure that those properties are well supported here. And my last question, can you tell me about what the immigration support services look like? Because I think really when I look at what how do we address our larger labor issues, it's truly through immigration and supporting our businesses through well-trained, well-educated, consistent employment. And I'm curious if you can just, without getting into all the hairy details, what services does the county do in support of new Canadians?
Thank you, through you, Chair. So Anna Rotterdam has been tasked with this very important area. And so she's working with employers, helping them navigate through express entry or it's different for every industry, but in agriculture, for example, and then healthcare as well. But she's basically there as a concierge. So helping them understand what's available to them, letting them know that there are specific consultants that can help them do like in-depth application writing and the legalese of things. She's also working with post-secondary institutions to let international students know about the opportunities. A lot of them do have the intent of staying here. So connecting them early on with employers and getting them feeling good about Wellington County as like a place to actually establish themselves and their families has been of use. It's a lot of relationship building. She's working with the local immigration partnership with Lutherwood. She's working with a lot of various folks that are in the community that are in the immigration area that we wouldn't even think are, so.
And thank you for that. My only request would be at some point, I would love to hear a delegation around all those services, because I think those are really important. And my experience on the business side of things those are hard for people to actually seek out people that are helpful. They often get spun around in a lot of cases. So if there's anything we can do as a community to truly point people in the right direction to resources that are legitimate resources, that are helpful resources, that are consistent, be very helpful. Thank you for that.
Excellent. Is there, I feel that you're creating a list of businesses within post-lunch for this BR&E project. Once you have that tabulated, could you share that with the other members of council so they could read through it? And then if they have a business they're aware of that the rest of us are not, they could connect with you? Is that a possibility?
Most certainly.
One of the takeaways from that meeting yesterday for me was whenever I thought ECDev, I thought, how can we help our very local small business and very, you know, or say the Aberfoyle and Morriston or these hamlets, but it's much more encompassing than that. And that was kind of an awakening for me. Like it's two components where I think ECDev, we have to look at the health and sustainability of the county and Portage as a whole, which I think would fall more on maybe like the elected officials, so through planning, zoning, those types of things. It's still very important that, you know, we're involving ECDev. Because I don't want to overwhelm you because you're doing great work and this presentation was fantastic, but I want to make sure that we're doing our part to support the ECDev. And then like the boots on the ground stuff, like I'm not going to go knocking on doors, businesses, things like that. So is there a time where sustainability of the organization as a whole needs a change? That's where I think we have a role, a bigger role we can implement. We talked a little bit about it yesterday. I've asked Courtney to share your presentation with the rest of council after today, because there's a lot of information that you can review it again. So that's, she says that should be fine. Are you tracking how many of the ARUs are used for short-term accommodation versus long-term?
Thank you. That is, that information is collected by chief building officials from each of the individual municipalities. And what we're trying to do at step one is make sure they're tracking it the same way. So as Councillor Bailey alluded, it's only 3 as of June of last year, but it may not be that it's being tracked by the chief building official as an ARU versus another community. So we are not collecting that information, whether it's for short-term or long-term right now.
Okay. And oh, they're speaking of mini lakes. Mill Creek is next door. They look the same. But there are 2 different distinct communities there. So we're dropping off flyers. Try to do that both.
Okay.
I know Mini Lakes actually has a community center that I don't know if that would be interested in the presentation to that whole group. I know you and I dealt with an individual down there, misrepresented. I thought she had a cell phone. She did not. But they can use their landline to call for a ride and then they can schedule a pickup. She was a wonderful lady. She's like, well, I'll just wait around for the ride will come, you know, she was fine with it, but she definitely didn't have the technology or the means to do it online. But so that reach out would be great as well. And so touching on what Councillor Goya was mentioning.
Sorry, Mini Lakes and then
Mill Creek.
Mill Creek.
Right, Mill Creek is what it's called. It's right next door. It's just another entrance. That's all I have. Thank you very much for coming down. That was an excellent presentation and I look forward to more information on the BRE and where we can help you with the resolution.
The council receives a delegation by Yana Burns, Wellington County Economic Development regarding economic development opportunities for information.
I get a move for that, please. Councillor Ford, second by Councillor Goyda. All in favor? Have a great day. All right, where are we at consent? Do you have a resolution for that, please?
The council or that the consent agenda items listed for the June 14th, 2023 council meeting be received for information.
I'm gonna move for that, please. Councillor Hurst, second by Councillor Bullock. All right. Items to be pulled out. Councillor Bullock.
I just have item 6.5.
Okay, Councillor Spillis.
The map picture 6.43, 6.43.
43, okay. Councillor Bailey.
6.33.
Right, and Councillor Hurst.
The ones I had already been pulled.
All right,
Thanks.
we can receive the remainder of those for information. All in favor? Right. Second. Right, Councillor, go ahead, 6.5.
The only reason I pulled that out is because I wasn't sure if maybe we should be looking at it or receiving it or whatever at the same time as we look at item 10.1 on our agenda, just because it's essentially the same thing. So I didn't have necessarily any specific comments on this item, just wondering if it should be grouped in with the other report.
Speak to that, Ms. McFox.
We can certainly do that. I can just add it that we're going to address it and receive it with the correspondence item.
It just makes sense, keeps it all.
Sure. We need a resolution to do that.
Yeah.
So what she said, she moves it. Give a second, please, Councilor Spoulos. All in favor? Carried, 6-5. Councilor Spoulos.
Yes, this report to the county roads department is a good news story. Right now, what we have is basically a perfect storm in terms of traffic. You had Lake Road under construction, you had this bridge go out, and then you had the MTO working on the on-off ramps at Town Line Road. So when that was happening, there was all kinds of traffic occurring through our township, people taking shortcuts through our roads. The backup along 34 in the evening, the Town Line going westbound was horrendous. Dealing with people who live at the top of the hill, and they're saying that traffic was backed up all the way from the intersection well past. So this is at least moving in the right direction, getting that sorted out. And the ramps to the 401, two of them are still out. The one that's of particular concern is open up again. This is the one that's from westbound to Town Line that's open up. That should alleviate the issue. But the takeaway for me is that we have to have some sort of better coordination between all these road authorities. That if county's working on a particular road and right adjacent to it, the MTO is going to work. There has to be some sort of understanding that, yeah, we'll do this or we'll do this type of thing and try to minimize disruption. The 35 bridge, I can understand it happens. You can't predict that, but certainly things that are within our control, we should be asking the MTO and the county to work together with us or with every municipality is going to be impacted, and make sure the impact is less.
Is that a move?
Yes, I'd like to move that with staff right to the county, the MTO, and request that future activities be better coordinated to alleviate conditions that has occurred just now.
Would you be satisfied with just writing the MTO and asking them to notify the county when they're going to do road lane closures? So then, you know,
Well, I'm not sure who's responsible. Perhaps they do coordinate. I would thought they would have.
so I'll try to work together. So can I get a second for that, please? Councilor Hurst, any discussion? Councilor Goyda?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't necessarily know who the correct person is to be coordinating, but I guess by sending it to all of them, then
Well, I think we gotta shoot a line across the bow, say, look, guys, this happened. You guys should do better next time around.
I don't see any fault in the county. They have a scheduled road reconstruction that's out 3 years. It begins construction and the MTO comes along and decides to widen the 401. It's circumstantial, but I feel the MTO should have been notifying the county of and us of the closures. We're kind of chugging along doing our own thing, right?
Well,
But-
to be fair, FTO does have a schedule as well, so it's these individuals not meshing the schedules with each other. I think that's the issue.
I'm fine with the correspondence. I don't feel it's gonna be received well.
It's fine.
maybe if you're saying this. If the MTO is planning work out in 2 years, 3 years, maybe it's just the timing of the application. Which they're probably going to be reluctant to share schedules that far in advance, but. That might be another approach, just earlier information.
I don't want to spend.
When I was involved in the construction, we met regularly with the utility authorities, with the roads, metro roads, city of Toronto roads, and said, okay, are we gonna screw up anybody by doing this now? And we all coordinated and know, okay, we need to do this, you stay out of the way for the next 6 months, you stay out of the way. So I don't see that as being a horrendous system, that if somebody forcing two, in this particular case, only two organizations to work together to make something happen.
What do you have captured? What's the wording?
The council directs staff to send correspondence to the county and the MTO requesting that future roadworks projects be better coordinated to alleviate significant impacts and delays to traffic within the township.
Can we, instead of saying better, can you say coordinate projects to avoid the. Where is it all documented, the circumstances that, you know?
Also, I'm sure we could say that to our future, such work. Right now, these ramps are probably gonna be, okay for the next 10, 15 years. I don't know where the next problem is gonna be, but all I'm asking is for the future.
To coordinate projects to reduce impacts on local roads in the future. So along those lines.
That's fine.
Councilor Bailey?
Yeah, essentially what we're asking for is better communication
Absolutely.
and to avoid so that residents aren't
Undo the impact.
impacted. I'm just thinking even broader, this is not just Plus Lunch issue, it's just MTO and the municipality that it's going through, because, you know, it's, as it moves along, it's going to impact the next municipality, so we can learn from our experience that perhaps the next municipality that they're doing construction through, they can connect with them as well. So I don't know if we can capture that it's not just for Wellington County, but it's for whatever county they're going through.
Councilor Hurst?
Yeah, in my mind, this is a communication exercise. I think it's all parties communicating effectively with each other so that everybody knows where everybody's at. To Councilor Sepulveda's comment, I think efforts could potentially be made in the future to mitigate those impacts. But I think what we found here, and like I've been caught in those traffic jam ups, and they're a kilometer long type of thing. So I guess where my head's at is just if we can learn from this, we're not going to impact a lot in the summer of 2023 for residents, and hopefully this is going to be alleviated. But I've had a number of people reach out to me, ask what is going on here. Like, this is atrocious. So I think if anything, we can help other municipalities navigate the headaches into the future. And I think it shows that we've understood the circumstance that's happened, and it's just asked for better communication and realizing we're probably not going to fix this summer, but longer term, let's just make an effort to coordinate as best we can between municipal, county, and provincial. That's my thoughts.
Any further comments? So what do you have, Patrick?
The council directs staff to send correspondence to the county and the MTO requesting that future roadworks projects be coordinated as much as possible to mitigate impacts and delays to traffic on local roads.
Any further comments? All in favor? Carried. Sorry, Councilor Swift, you just have the one, right? And I have 633. Dr. Minutes, Councilor Bailey.
Yeah, I pulled this one. This is
Oh, sorry, can I pause you? Quick. It's my belief at the roads committee of the county yesterday, the bridge replacement was approved, so it'll be going to tender and all that good stuff, so. Sorry.
can I ask a question about that bridge?
Sure.
When was it due to be replaced? Do we know?
Next year.
So it just gave out a year or 2 years earlier than predicted. Yeah, so consent item 6.33 is support to the township of Lincoln by the town of Coburg. They were the ones that pulled this out. It's essentially about the Heritage Register. What I've pulled from this is it speaks to the new legislative requirements of the Ontario Heritage Act associated with Bill 23 mandate, resulting in a need for an unreasonable amount of resources and major budget implications for a local municipality within the short 2-year timeline. And they're just asking, trying to find the right wording, for that not to happen and to provide adequate time for the municipality to consider all the properties within the municipality. So there's wording in the town of Lincoln's that I would just pull out and support. I'm sorry, I didn't give that to Seth ahead of time, but I have it here.
You don't have to. Okay, I don't have a, okay. So I guess that's moved, the secondary, we'll discuss it. Counselor Goida, okay. Counselor Goida?
Yeah, I think when I read this consent item, it appears what they're actually asking is for instead of having that 2-year limit of the heritage register, to just maintain a permanent heritage register, which I do think has value. And so I would not have an issue in supporting this consent item.
Can I just ask the clerk, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. The new changes to the heritage designation have already been passed into law, is that not correct? So I'm not sure how, we can continue to ask, but it's already in law, so. And we did make comments about the grandfathering when this was first proposed, so I'll let you do this.
So through you, Mr. Chair, that's completely correct. The legislation is already in place. I think this is part of the changes to the Heritage Register that most municipalities are going to struggle with. Just the volume of properties that are listed, and then the loss of those properties and that interim protection from demolition. So I do think it remains a significant concern. So there may be value in just restating that part of the changes that were made is particularly difficult for municipalities to deal with within that 2-year time frame.
Would it be supported by council if we also attach our previous thing on the heritage component? So support this, but say, hey, this was our opinion, and we also support this. I thought we hit it.
We hit it on the head.
Yeah.
Last time.
Just grandfather what we have on there, that way everybody was anyways, so. Councillor Bailey, would you support that staff include our previous submission on the heritage concerns as well as support this?
Yeah, I would. In fact, I'm even wondering if we've already done a good job in our submission, maybe there is no weird following through. I don't know. I just thought it was, if everyone's struggling the same as we are, and this gathers a bit of momentum, right? There could be some changes, or you never know, they could amend it to say, okay, now we're gonna give 3-4 years. Like, it's that short term that's really.
Yeah, for interest of time, let's support this resolution, add ours. And we'll carry on if you're comfortable. with
I'm
that.
comfortable with that, yeah.
You seconded it?
Yeah.
I did,
Yes, all right. Comments, Councillor Hurst?
I'm supportive. I think this horse is out of the barn on this one per se. So I think realistically, what we look for in the future would be an amendment to the regulation at some point. That's a long way out, but I think even just the solidarity with other municipalities, I think is strategically important for us. So I'm in support. I think it's important to reference what we previously provided. And that's about all we can do at this point.
I agree.
Last thing I'll say is staff make a note that for the next conference would be Roma for Good Roads in February of 24, will be 23 right now. That we delegate to MMH on that amendment and try to get the grandfathering in. Because emo delegations are closed already. So. Good. Ready to do it? Good. All in favor? Carry. All right, I believe that's all the consent items, correct? For the individuals joining us today, are you here for a specific report or just here in general? So I'll pause one more. We're going to be going into close at 1 p.m. So if you're here for a specific item, then I'll ask council to maybe move it up, or if we just.
Again, item 9.3.6.
Which one's that? So council, as we have a member from the public here. For the item he just mentioned, 9 point, sorry. 9 point. You okay with that? Okay, so I just need to look for council for resolution to move that item up. Councilor Hurst moves it, seconded, Mr. Gillis. All in favor? Carried. All right,
Everybody here.
Yell. just yell at me, please.
Update.
On-
Like, council,
Council updates?
yeah, that's always left until the very end.
Yep, I'm okay with that. I don't think we need a resolution for that, do we? Or changes the order? We'll do it. Resolution to move council updates after 9.6.3, Councilor Hurst, second by Councilor Phillips. As soon as she pauses, I'm
We're doing it.
all in favor. Okay. So, I'll just give Ms. White a quick second to type. Okay, so it's your report.
So through you, Mr. Chair, this report is brought to council to relook at their comments on the proposed changes regarding the ERO posting 0196813. So as council recalls, this was looked at the May 24th council meeting where we had planner for landscape provide a report to council, and council's comments are included in the report. Now, the province extended its commenting period until August the 4th, and so staff felt it was prudent to bring this back to council. As well, the province made some statements around the severance potential on agricultural lands as well that should be considered as part of this discussion. The other item that's included in this report is another follow-up from a previous consent item that was submitted to the township by an organization called Oasis, which is related to sewage hauling within Ontario. So the report also goes into some detail around some investigation work that was done by staff around sewage hauling and wastewater treatment plants and some of the legislation and the concerns that were raised in that Oasis letter. So there's some information as well as some supporting material that was attached to this report that staff reviewed, and just some general concerns about the sewage hauling industry, the state that they're in terms of wastewater treatment plants and the availability of those plants to receive hauled sewage. And staff felt that this was something that should form part of the conversation when looking at this ERO posting, specifically in Puss Lynch, because we rely on septic systems and hauled sewage, and just the impact of growth and what that looks like for the township, particularly with the limitations on capacity in some of these wastewater treatment plants across Ontario. So just looking to bring that into the conversation. And I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, so we'll do the first, we'll leave this septic part separate and we'll deal with it at the end because I have some insight onto that. Mr. Gordon.
Yeah, so I guess for me, when this came to council at the previous meeting, I wasn't entirely certain about my eligibility to speak on it. But after spending some time speaking with John Maskeren, our integrity commissioner, I feel like I can participate in the discussion now. And having said that, the comments that were prepared at our previous meeting, I didn't have any input on that. So I do have a couple of sort of key points that I pulled specifically from the county plan that was presented on our last council meeting that I feel are important to include. I can go over those now if need be, but alternatively, I think one thing to consider is we now have a deadline to comment that's been pushed out and we have more time.
I'd like you to go through them now, if you could.
Okay. So the first thing that I just wanted to add is that I think that our answer for question number 1, which was what are your thoughts on the policies that have been included? And our comment is, in general, Puss Lynch Council is in agreement. I think that there's an opportunity to maybe strengthen that comment a little bit. I find it a little, we're not in agreement with everything. There are things that we're not in agreement with. So I think maybe something like what the county has said in their report, While there are proposed changes that we welcome and support, there are some directions in the 2023 PPS that are of concern. So that was just something that I thought we could
Move.
strengthen.
She moved that. Need a seconder for that. We'll discuss amending that comment. Counselor Bailey, excellent. We're just gonna do one at a time.
Okay.
We're gonna rock through this. Councilor Spillis, comments on modifying that first statement.
Fine with me.
Councilor Bailey?
Yeah, modify it or just take it out. We don't have to be in agreement. We don't have to even think anything's a great proposal. We can just say what our issues are.
Well, what's on the table is which the wording she proposed.
Can you restate your wording?
It's directly out of the county report, and it says, while there are proposed changes that we welcome and support, there are some directions in the 2023 PPS that are of concern.
Okay.
Wording, but
I'm in
Councilor,
support of that.
okay, all in favor on that amendment? That's carried. Your next one?
Okay, I also think that it's important to address, and this again came both out of the county report and from the landscape report or presentation. So the wording out of the county report again is about the lack of policy direction related to the creation of affordable and attainable housing. The proposed PPS looks to weaken provincial direction on these forms of housing. The removal of affordable housing definitions and affordable housing targets. The government should be using this opportunity to strengthen these policies to ensure the effective and continuous delivery of these housing units across the province. Can I speak to why I think that's important? I think in Puslinch, I think it's difficult to speak to attainable housing. It's difficult here in Puslinch due to the rural nature and the servicing constraints. But I do think that it is important from a broader perspective that we use this opportunity to comment, to advocate for that initiative in general. I think creating more affordable housing in general should be the driving factor behind all of this policy change. And so I think that it'd be a missed opportunity for us to not include some kind of comment in relation to that in our comment.
She moved that. We have a seconder. Councilor Spillis, comments. Councilor Spillis?
I'm okay. It's more information that why she's participating. The Councilor Goyder is adding more to more bricks to the mill, so to speak, and I'm good with that.
Councilor Bailey?
yeah, I think I'm having a hard time hearing the information, processing it out loud in council right now. And I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to be able to submit all our comments. Because I have a whole slew of them and I'm better visual. Right now, I'm struggling with what the term was that Councilor Boyd actually mentioned. I have some comments and I'm not sure how it's fitting into her comments and I would like to contribute. But I think if we're trying to do this step by step, it might not be effective.
Well, then, in principle, we'll approve the amendments. And then we'll bring it back in the July meeting for final adoption. So I think it's cleaner if we agree to include each member's comments and amendments. And then final approval before submission will be the July meeting before the deadline. So then that'll give you your opportunity to review it at home and however it works for you. So
Can we submit?
well, I'd like everybody to discuss it now because I don't want to go, July will be the last kick at the can. So if you submit it, we'll see it 3 days before. And we have to make an ultimate decision. If you hear it today, you'll have a base point, starting point, then you'll see it on the agenda for July and final approval. So
Okay,
at the end of the day, you could just say no right now. Or, right,
no, I agree. We need to be supplementing our comments. I also didn't do mine in order of what the province had set out.
that's
in their
fine. We'll
questions.
work
So I
through
don't
it.
know where my comments fit in. But
That's fine.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could make a suggestion, if council members were to make their statements today, not necessarily capturing the exact statements into a resolution, as you've indicated, just so everyone can hear what they are generally, and then if council members could submit those to staff, we could incorporate them into one document that we could review in detail at the July 12th and formulate our response at that meeting for submission. That would give council the opportunity to hear them today and then to review them in detail between now and the next meeting.
You want to remove your motion? So you just state your statements and it won't be a resolution. So right now yours is on the table. So I either have to have a vote on it or you have to withdraw it.
Our first component, have we passed that part already though?
The first one's already in, so we're not going to revisit that one.
Okay, so I will,
Just,
I will remove my motion and just speak to the.
and you did, you spoke to it, right? Is that fine? Okay, so that's her comment. Do you have any comments to Councillor Goyd on her statements or Councillor Bailey, other than you're gonna see it later?
I'll leave it for now then.
I don't know if we need to go around the table, if everybody's just gonna speak to their comments and we'll see it in July. That's the direction. Okay, do you have other ones, Councillor Goyd?
Yeah, the next one is the softening of policies. Again, sorry, I'm just taking this right out of our county report, so that's why I have this elaborate wording. I didn't come up with this myself. The softening of policies related to climate change in the 2023 EPS. Now is the time that municipalities are looking to initiate climate change actions and introduce ways to adapt to significant impacts from extreme weather events. Province needs to lead this challenge and support municipal efforts on climate change. Again, I think that it's an important part to be included in our comments. It was something that was also flagged by Landscape at their presentation. And I think it's pretty timely. We've just been through an air quality advisory that lasted for several days for the smoke from the wildfires, which is arguably an increase due to an increase in climate change. So I think I think those climate change policies need to be strengthened, not weakened. And I think that also for us to not comment on that is a missed opportunity.
I think I'm gonna take a different change. So you've got a list of comments, correct? Do you have any amendments?
Oh, I did already.
Yeah. Councillor Bailey, you have a list? Councillor Hurst, do you have any? You do.
I do have a list,
I feel that.
exhausting.
Yeah, I think that we need to just submit them to staff and we'll have to deal with it at the July meeting. It's gonna be a duplication of work going through each one. And we'll be able to review them ahead of the July 15th council meeting. Councillor Hurst.
Just a question, maybe it's a due process, and I'm not sure if we have bylaws to allow for this, but this is a really detailed bill 97. There's a lot of nuance in it. And I think it's really important, very impactful for this community. I'm not sure if we could set up a council subcommittee to work with staff prior to the July meeting to refine it. I'm not sure if we're allowed to do that, but if we are, I'm very willing to participate. I know at a business side, on the ag side, I've been very involved in this one and I'm happy to share perspectives, but like for today's meeting, I could get into the hairy details and I'm not sure that's the most productive, but I think for me, this is really important. This is what the world's going to look like for the next 3 or 4 years at the provincial level. So I think we want to take our time and do it right. We have a window here for July, but I wouldn't want to get to the July council meeting and just start text editing a document again. If there's an opportunity to do a subcommittee, I would be happy to prep that with a colleague as best we can. I'm not sure we're allowed to do that though.
So through you, Mr. Chair, council could certainly choose to create a subcommittee of 2 to work on this.
2, 1, you, 1, him.
No, 2 members of council to work on this. I would still suggest that whatever's worked on comes back to council at the July 12th meeting for formal approval to be submitted to the province. If we were to do the subcommittee, I would then suggest as well that we set a kind of a deadline for council members to get their comments in to allow the subcommittee time to actually do that work.
And what's the deadline?
I would say yes. It's it wouldn't be not something that I would recommend, no.
Okay.
So through you, Mr. Chair, in terms of the deadline, the July 12th meeting is going to have the agenda circulated on July 5th. So that leaves us approximately,
June 30th.
I think probably we would want to have our comments in no later than maybe this Friday to give the subcommittee a full 2 weeks. Yeah,
Okay, so that's fine. So resolution to create a subcommittee, 2 members of council, deadline of June 16th for comments, and then we have to decide who's on the committee. Anyone opposed to Councillor Hurst being on the committee?
no,
Okay, now who was going to be the second one? Suggestions? That's good. You?
So suggestions of who should be on it?
Yeah, the second one. One's Hurst, who's the other one?
I'd like to nominate, Councilor Wood.
Will you stand?
Sure.
Okay, I'm kind of ad hoc in this, but. Any other nominations to sit on the committee with Councillor Hurst?
Let's go down nominate John, I guess that's good.
I'm happy to do the heavy lifting. Councillor Goyda.
And I have comments to submit as well. Thank you.
So congratulations to the subcommittee. Does that work for you?
Maybe I have a question. In terms of timing, isn't it not due at the beginning of August?
through you, Mr. Chair, the commenting period closes August 4th, but we don't have our meeting until August 16th.
Okay, but it's certainly going to arrange something between the 12th and August 3rd if we want a special meeting, if we find we're lagging in progress.
I'm hoping because Councillor Hurst has his comments prepared and the rest, the remainder of councillors, that the majority of the work is done. So it's just looking through it. So
Yeah,
end of the day, yes.
I just don't want to spend another hour going through the.
No,
comments.
we're not. We're gonna skip it. They're gonna do the work.
No, I mean, it's
July.
July meeting. I don't want to spend a while going through that. I think we just read it. And
That's my hope, is that this committee will boil it down, it'll be presented July 12th, and we'll be supportive of it.
Good.
And if there are a few items, it's just very specific.
Sure, sounds good.
And then. Can only be 2 because then it's quorum. If there's 3, is that the? Okay. Any more clarity on that, or should you read it out what we have?
The report ADM 2023-032 entitled Proposed Changes Regarding ERO Posting 0196813. Follow-up report be received, and the council appointed subcommittee of 2 members to review all council comments and assist in preparing a report for the July 12th council meeting. And the subcommittee membership be as follows: Councillor Hurst and Councillor Goyda.
And then you move that.
We still have Councillor Goyda and Councillor Sekula seconding.
Last comments? All in favor? Carry. Question about the committee. And the public send comments to those 2 members of the subcommittee.
We can amend the resolution slightly to just say council comments and public comments.
Or can the public send comments on this report and staff appropriate it, take it to the committee?
We can take a look at that. Yep. Yeah.
So if you have comments, send it on this report. And. Strong?
Public, and I'm interested as well in this proposal.
Yeah, good public. Just send.
We can work through the councilors.
Yeah.
Or work through the staff. Because this is, I think, because of the resolution, technically it shouldn't go to the councilors specifically, just on ERO posting 0196883, here are our comments, and staff will take it to the committee. Is the process. Is that clean? Or would you rather an amendment to the resolution?
That's fine. That's fine.
I think that's cleaner if it goes through staff.
Mr. Mayor, I guess we want a deadline for these comments as well from the public.
Through Mr. Chair, I would say with the same deadline, the 16th, so that we can ensure we have enough time to review.
Right. I assume you have some prepared already. Or just a couple, right?
Counselor said.
So are you okay? That's good.
I've reviewed it extensively and into several meetings.
Okay.
Agriculture assessment myself. And aggregates.
Okay. So that's that part. Good, now we need to, because we stumbled here, but I want to deal with the sewage. Or the septage component of the report. Because we passed it, does it technically already tell it?
So no, we can still, if there's another motion to look at a part of the report, we can do that as well.
I'd like to have some discussion around that septage.
Sure, I'd like to move that we discuss the sewage portion of the report.
Second by Councilor Goya, all in favor? So Ms. White Fox, obviously highlighted the concern. I've had some preliminary discussions with the county. What I'd like to see from council is that, we forward the report to the planning committee for county to discuss options for dealing with reliance on outside communities for our septage. And you can put some word in there around, due to the, the impacts of new rural growth. So I want to keep it somewhat generalized, but I had a discussion with CEO yesterday and some colleagues on where this would be the best place for it to land. And we thought the planning committee, and then I think it's an important conversation to either ask the county to look at ways to deal with septic, is it septage? Septage as a whole community. And the options around there. So I guess that's kind of a generalized thought. So that's good. And you're aware I'm the chair of planning, so that's kind of why.
Yes, so this component of the report would get forwarded to county planning staff to find ways to address the sort of overarching issue countywide.
I put in my little notes here is discuss options. Yes. Really, it started the conversation of, does the county, do we, as a county, approach the wastewater treatment plants that are within the county to accept, waste from the rural communities? Do we enter or approach neighboring municipalities? So just generalize, discuss it, and report back to, I guess. I know it's very vague, but
I guess the only one thing that I'm cautious about in this report, and now I can't find it where it says it. But at one part of this report, it talks about requesting the county to make it a condition as part of the severance that some kind of hauler can accommodate the I don't know what the wording is, but the sewage, yeah. I'm cautious about sending that component of it to the county, because I guess what I would want to know is if that's even something that the haulers even do. Like, are we asking for something that's not even an option?
So through you, Mr. Chair, that part of the recommendation in the report, I think would be appropriate for this council to discuss. And then it would be something that would be passed along to our PDAC committee. And then again, it would be a suggested condition that perhaps PDAC could recommend to the county. We did speak to Landscape about this. That was our planner that we had come speak to us at May 24th. It is something that condition is used in other parts of the province. So this wording came from municipalities, Western municipalities that use this type of wording. So I think it's something that's maybe not typical, but isn't unusual to request. It wouldn't be an unusual request. And it's just something, again, in the supplemental documents that were added in terms of creating that awareness that these rural properties are going to be on septic. That being added as a condition to consent kind of brings that top of mind.
I'm concerned about advocating for that condition right now.
Me too.
I hear you, but I think let's have the conversation about if we can implement a program to deal with septic countywide. Because maybe the answer is no, and then we need a critical point where there isn't a home for septic, then that condition can come in. Right now, whether it's right or wrong, we're managing with our septic somehow, the industry is managing with it. So I think let's have this initial conversation, see where we're going with. And then maybe later. So it's,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good with that.
so we're not endorsing the recommendations in the report. I feel that we're just highlighting the concern in this, in the situation and asking some conversations to start. And we'll report back on possible direction for resolving it, and then we'll get deeper into some resolutions or restrictions that may have to be put into place. I think that's where we're going, so. It's good.
So it's just, I agree with all that, but just one, I guess, as part of the subcommittee, in terms of the comments for the previous motion we had, the ERO. Can we still include comment on that, or do you want to wait for us to get a report back from planning committee?
I guess, so maybe this one, we should also add in that the county discuss engaging the province on solutions for rural septic due to rural growth.
So maybe it's not part of this ERO comment, it's an entirely different.
That'll get the ball rolling in the direction.
No, I agree with you. It's something that we should be looking to tackle. It's going to impact us in the future. So, Mr. Mayor, are you looking for a motion specifically to carve out this portion of the report or pass out the entire report?
I believe that's when I want this to land at the planning committee and just not have a binding resolution of we're endorsing line 2, 3, 4, just. Yes, so I want this report to land at planning committee so that we can start discussing at the planning committee solutions, plus advocating the province to be part of that solution.
Mr. Mayor, I got something scratched out here. I wonder if we want to listen to it.
Sure, I'll just maybe just shortly go to the other two members. Councillor Bailey?
No, I like the direction of this. I even had, can we keep this? Can we keep this within the county? What do other municipalities do? And my thinking was try to keep it somehow local, and I didn't know what the options, were. My head also went towards some sort of conservation options. What, I don't know how the building code works for it, but what composting options are there? How can we divert some of this? It's a problem. So how can we actually kind of prevent the problem, how can we lessen it? So I didn't know if there were other incentives or other alternatives as well to just what typically happens. And I don't know where that comes into the conversation, but I'll tell the planning committee about it.
Sounds good. Councillor Hurst.
Yeah, I think when this got pulled out in a previous meeting, very much where my head was at was how do we have a proactive type of conversation around management, realizing that this community is reliant on hauling septic out of the confines of this community. And if that becomes a burden or impossible for whatever licensing reason, and in my mind where it went was a municipality with a infrastructure to manage septic only allows it from their own municipality. It puts us at a very precarious situation type of thing. And that's where my head was going. So I think having a proactive or at least a exploratory conversation at the planning level at the county, I think is a prudent thing to do. Based on where that goes, then next steps will be developed at that point. But I think that's That's kind of where my head was going. I think it's a really important point around new development. That's a significant piece, and I would suspect at the provincial level, when they're thinking new housing development, septic management isn't real high on their list or on their list at all type of thing, right? So I think there's some very specific nuances that our community and like-minded communities face. So I think I'm very supportive of having more conversations to shed light on this issue. That's about as far as my head had gone.
Councilor Gordon, I'll ask, I'm sorry, but for the comments, I'm gonna get to Councilor Exposed through this. Do you got your resolution hand out there? Yeah. Before.
Okay, my thoughts are due to the impact of increased rural growth, septic management will become an issue. Be it resolved that the portion of the report dealing with the septic management be forwarded to the county planning committee for consideration options for county-wide servicing options, and which will include involving the province in such discussions.
Perfect, I think that's a great starting point. Seconded by Councilor Hurst, comments or? Councilor Gordon?
Do you think we need to say septic management will become an issue? Is there a softer approach to that?
Is, I think it already is, doesn't the report already highlight it is, I mean, it is.
Okay, all right, then just leave it.
Schools. Maybe.
Sounds good.
Good first. Very good. Very good. Just taking.
The council further considers report 2023-032 and specifically the concerns raised regarding improving the management of bulk sewage from private septic systems. And whereas the impact of increased rural growth, septic management will become a greater issue within the township and the province. Therefore, that council directs staff to forward the portion of the report regarding septage to the County of Wellington Planning Committee for further discussion and request that the County Planning Committee report back to the township regarding potential consideration options, including countywide servicing, and that this also include requesting funding from the province.
Is it clear enough that we want the county to discuss the issue, or is it just reporting back? Is that the same difference? Just most wordsmithing, but I just want to be clear, because a couple of times when we send resolutions up the hill and they kind of come to me and ask.
I forgot to say something, consideration about the planning committee consider options for.
Was that captured in there, or?
No, it's not, it was report back. We got to say that.
Yeah, I think options and potential outcomes or potential solutions to address the issue.
Was that the same thing?
Sure. I like solutions.
I think it could be options, solutions.
She had options, outcomes, and solutions, so I think she just removed outcomes, right?
Yes.
So options and solutions is still in.
Yeah.
Not being critical, I mean, we're just throwing a bunch of stuff at things.
So, to you, Mr. Chair, just changed the last, part of it. Therefore, the council directs staff to forward the portion of the report regarding septage to the County of Wellington Planning Committee. And that the committee be requested to give consideration to options and potential solutions, including the potential for a countywide servicing for hauled sewage, and that the province also be engaged regarding funding to support rural growth.
And should we add? Our rationale is due to the proposed changes or, you know, PPS. Rural growth implications. I want to,
Well,
I don't know if it matters, but
I guess sure, there's the impact of visual growth, in accordance with the latest provincial Ontario. Whatever the
just trying to tie them in that,
Yeah,
hey, you're
exactly.
saying we gotta have this growth,
yeah,
This is
absolutely,
the-
that's a good strategy,
right? And otherwise it could just be like, well, why are you picking on us kind of thing, so. Sorry.
No, I've added that to the end, in accordance with the proposed changes to the PPS in Bill 97.
Around rural growth. Just want to point to rural growth because.
Urban growth communities with no. Services.
All right, as anybody need it reread? Point is, we're gonna have a conversation with the planning committee and I understand what we're looking for. Okay, that was moved. Seconded,
Yes.
last comments before we approve it. Okay, all in favor? All right, that's carried. I believe that finalized 9.36. We're going to go to council reports as our attendee requested. All right, I'm just gonna look at my calendar, so. So first, we had a meeting with, phone call with Mr. Speaker Ted Arnott. We wanted to schedule a request, an update on the Highway 6 Morrison bypass. And I asked him to just momentarily pause as staff was completing the documentation as directed from council resolution around the Auditor General's report that went out. Mr. Arnott, I believe, endorsed that position of the MTO, paraphrasing, but returning to an evidence-based strategy for highway expansions. And he asked for a meeting with the minister at Queen's Park and staff and gave the option of virtual. So we're waiting on that confirmation. So maybe going down to Queens. I prefer going in person, but if it means whether or not we get a meeting or not, we'll only take it virtual, then obviously we participate virtually. I have been added to two task force, land use, what is it called? It's a provincial land use, oh my gosh, why am I butchering this? Here it is. Land Use Planning Resources Task Force meeting. And that I believe is because I was chair of planning at the county, so this is involving AMO. And you know, we're highlighting the concerns that we hear through the resolutions up here in the county. We've had one meeting, and that involves both elected officials, senior staff, AMO, obviously. So around these PPS statements, that's good. So we're advocating that. At the TAMO Executive Committee meeting, we also discussed the ERO postings, and Councillor Balmer, as a member of the executive, is working with other members to be essentially similar to what we did here. Is we approved the comments from the members of the executive, and then they gave the blessing to Councillor Balmer to work through and put some polish on those comments and records and submit them. And then we're going through them as well. So there's a little bit of duplication, but to submit from different organizations is not a bad thing. We had a joint City of Guelph County meeting at City of Guelph Chambers around paramedics stations. They highlighted their needs and the condition of the statements or stations, and discussed briefly response times and ambulance offload delays. In that meeting, brought to my attention that we had only 3 months funding for, I'm gonna call it a triage nurse, but it was a nurse dedicated to looking after patients brought in by ambulance that didn't need to be admitted to the ER immediately. So essentially, it's a area that they could monitor patients and thus get the ambulance back out onto the road. When that was first announced, made an assumption, and you know what happens when you make an assumption, I thought it was a year's worth of funding. Well, it was 3 months and the hospital was unable to fill that position. And to me, it makes sense because it was only 3 months worth of funding. So the ambulance offload delay is still a concern through the paramedic service, county, through us. We're pressuring the government for funding nurses. However, you still have to be able to hire a nurse. Somebody has to take the position. Also in that meeting, it was mentioned, Councillor Balmer asked some very specific questions. It was indicated that Wellington, what do they call themselves? Wellington Global Paramedic Service, whatever they are. They do have the data to report on response times in the county. So I believe Councillor Balmer is going to be following up on that. The county is going to be discussing the building of the new stations. It was put on hold when for the members that were here last term, and there was discussions around funding model for paramedics, and province may have been reviewing that. That put building the stations and the upgrades on hold because we weren't sure who was going to be funding what and where responsibility is going to be landing. County has received confirmation from powers that be that funding model is not being reviewed any longer. So now the conversations around new ambulance stations and upgrades is going to be moving forward. And that's good news for now. If that report were to be found, I don't know where it would be on Guelph Council agenda. It's a little critical of the hosts of the current ambulances and their staff. A lot of it's in rural municipalities, fire departments, just in that extra bay. I want to say, I think I'm appreciative of the municipalities that have been hosting an ambulance in their facilities and making it possible to have the response times we do have. But that doesn't mean there's room to improve. So just want to say that thank you to those northern municipalities that have hosted them in their fire departments and cohabitated. I then was invited to a task force around the recycled aggregate. It's called the Ontario Recycled Aggregate Working Group. We have an ERO posting around that as well. It consisted of a representative from AMO, myself, and NGOs. There's a whole bunch of acronyms, industry, and we're essentially working through same questions and as the ERO posting around recycled aggregate. So when you guys make your comments here, I will be taking that forward. What we discussed at that meeting is essentially in a closed session. They're considering it that way, that it's not to be, the task force can be spoken about, but the content of the meeting is not to be. I will say though, that when I was in that meeting, I stated that I felt there needed to be more representation from the municipalities, because it was just one member from AMO and myself. So I feel they did take that away, and there will be more invites for whether it be senior staff or more input from the municipalities, and we continue to work through that. We had the meeting yesterday on the business support in Plus Lunch, and I made the call to ask Councillor Schools to attend. It was my recollection that he had asked for Yana to come down and delegate, and had made some comments around ECDEV. So that was my call. We can't have three because that's quorum, but it was a good meeting, and we highlighted some businesses. And as you heard earlier, if she's going to provide a list, and if you know some businesses that we weren't aware of, to provide your input on that. And Councillor Wood did a pretty productive meeting. I did duck out for another meeting with AMO, but I was happy that I went. And that meeting with AMO was slightly around the task force around aggregate and land planning, but I've also I've planted the seed with AMO that TAPMO be their, first contact point around commenting for proposed changes to either the ARA or anything around aggregate. So what we're trying to avoid is a duplication of work. Is, you know, as much as AMO striking a task force around aggregate and then TAPMO doing the same work. My pitch to AMO, and we're gonna have more discussions, is I'm hoping they'll enter into a memorandum of understanding of some sort, if that's the right term, that if a provincial ERO posting comes out with changes, first thing they do is kick it to TAPMO for comment. Then we digest it, review it, and then give it back to them for ultimate endorsement. And when I was speaking with the director in the Amber Crawford, they seemed to like that idea, but obviously it's pretty high level. They did ask, they said, well, you know, when you're doing these EROs, who's your staffer that we can contact, or, you know, putting this stuff together? And I said, there isn't one. It's the executive, myself, and if I see a strength in a member, I ask them to participate. So TAMO needs, in my opinion, we need to work towards getting that executive director position in place, so they can be a contact point for all municipalities. But then also, if AMO is willing to let us be the first review of these postings and pick it up to them, that that'll raise our profile with even a little further with the government. That's all in, and that's one thing she did say when I mentioned that I was trying to raise TAPMO's profile, and we've done a great job so far. She said, well, that's why you're on these task force as TAPMO's representative, because they're starting to recognize us more. Not taking away from the previous iterations of TAPMO, but it's maturing, which is great news. But we definitely need staff support in my opinion, on a full-time basis. So I think that is all, which seems like a lot. And now I'll open it to questions. You know, I regurgitated a lot there, but I'll just go around.
I don't have any questions about that. That's quite the calendar.
It's a little busy. And then I add on stage as another project. I'm a sucker.
Just one question, Mr. Mayor. The pursuit of executive director of capital, where does that stand?
So executive and Wellington County staff have drafted up a job description. And that was refined slightly at the last meeting of the executive. My memory tells me correctly. Now we're taking it to the AGM, you know, to pitch it to the municipalities, but the real stumbling block is the funding. We've raised our rates, the membership fee substantially at TAPMO. We had one top 10 member municipality take the position that they didn't see the value in the fee and the work that TAPMO had done in the past year. I think that is a gross misrepresentation of what TAPMO's been doing, and I was very disappointed they withdrew their membership. Again, that's why I've engaged AMO in recognizing TAPMO. We need buy-in from our other member municipalities. So I know this is a long answer to your question, Councilor Schools, but where I'm trying to find a way to fund the position, because we need somebody that's going to eventually be proficient on site plan review. I've spoke with Courtney about creating, or at least, no, maybe I haven't spoken to you, maybe I'm going to speak to you about it, but I feel that say we have files on aggregate that would be an asset to another municipality going through, say, a PID application, and that we're legally allowed to share, then TAPMO has these files. Maybe the members have to enter into a non-disclosure agreement or something like that to protect our confidentiality. But anyways, that we're able to say, here's things that you can ask for in a PID application that are good for your municipality, or if they, you know, so but I can't do that. And that's where we need this executive director, but I need the buy-in from the municipality. So right now, I think we're going to pitch a financing proposal where the fees cover X amount of salary and benefits and all that good stuff. And then my job is going to be, after the August meeting gets endorsed by the members of TAPMO in its entirety, is that I go to the top 10 producers and say, are you willing to fill the gap that the fees can't feed? Because it impacts us the most, the top 10 producers. Or maybe that list is the top 20 producers now, just because it's top 10 producing municipality, or top things. So that's where we're at. August, we're gonna look at the funding model, then I'm gonna go and advocate for buy-in from the other municipalities. And I thought there was one other component. Anyways, I think that touches on it, but it boils down to the money is the top part. But
Thank you.
Councilor Bailey, or
No, I think I'm good. I was just curious where the job description was gonna be advertised and how you were gonna kind of get that out there. To find the right person.
well, and that's the challenging part. I'm quickly becoming, besides Miss White here in the audience, I think I'm becoming one of the most educated people in aggregate, just because I have to be reviewing everything. But that's the challenging part too, is finding somebody either that is willing to learn or has some of that background.
So you want a job?
But it's just, but you don't necessarily have to, in my mind, you just have to be a resource point, and there has to be value, perceived, real value to the member municipalities, because it doesn't make sense for everybody to have an expert. And I think once I can show that there is value there and some documentation we can share, some we can't, whatever it may be, you know, then people will buy in, but until that point, I'll leave it at that. Councilors?
Yeah, I was piqued with the conversation around the ambulance response times. I'd be curious to see what that looks like. Once Councillor Bulmer at the county level has that, I'm curious. Presumably some of the residents in the southwest corner of the township would be serviced through Cambridge ambulances based on geography or proximity. Is that a fair assumption? And B, if it is, could we request that information outside the county that has impact on the township?
You're partially right, and I'll steal Pat Moyle's line from that rings a bell to some people here, but I only know enough to be dangerous. My understanding is, as long as one of our ambulances is available, then it shall attend the southwest corner as you chose, right? But if we don't have an ambulance available, I might be mistaken on this. Ambulances cross municipal jurisdictions. I do recall, now that you bring it up, that there was concerns when we added an ambulance to Rockwood that it would be drawn into Fulton region. So it may be the very closest ambulance serves the person or the call. But I think my understanding is if we have an ambulance available, it should go first, but. So it could be a combination of the two. Where another problem lies is that. Guelph creates a large volume of calls, and this is where I don't feel there's enough understanding at the city of Guelph either. Is you have specific ambulances in Guelph. Once they're all tied up, they start shifting them around. They start drawing them down. Then that ambulance, another one gets pulled into Guelph and it sits on Delhi Street waiting to offload. Then another one comes from Arthur to Fergus to Guelph. It gets tied up and it just keeps consuming the ambulances into the city. So our response times become longer and longer. And then once they're all unavailable, they start pulling from regional Waterloo. But it's a good question on whether or not it's always the first the closest ambulance that attends, or do all of our resources have to be utilized prior to that kicking in? I can find that out for you, but I think that'd be a great question to ask once we have the response times. Thanks. All right, it's not New Valley. And any updates from members of council?
Finally got a reappointment to the Missouri Social Protection Committee. I just have to sign on.
Congratulations. Mr. Bailey?
I just wanted to report, we hosted, it was a community event. Wellington OPP were involved. Fire had brain injury of Wellington Waterloo there, Safe Communities Committee. We hosted the second annual bike rodeo on June 3rd. So we'd asked youth to register ahead of time. I think we had about 25 kids registered, so the number was up from last year. We'd like to see that number go up for next year. But it was a really successful event and it was a lot of fun. We had some new volunteers out who left saying that was a lot of fun. We had kids getting their bikes tuned up. We had the bike lady who lives on Arkle Road there out, and she was tuning up kids' bikes, and Sean Whaling was there talking about train safety, and kids got to go home with, you know, vests and safety vests and lights for their bikes. And anyway, it's just an all-round great event, and it was the Optimist Club as well. I forgot to mention them. But it was just so great to see all those community groups come together and host a fun event. So we'll do that again next year.
Excellent. Any further members of council? Ms. Hurst?
Just a brief one on Heritage Advisory Committee. The staff held an open house in the end of May, and I think they did a really good job of navigating a room with a lot of questions. Some fact-based and some where, you know, people can probably have an opportunity to better understand what the Heritage Registry process is. So I just want to commend staff. You know, those are never easy things to pull off, and they did well. And I think the other exciting thing from a heritage standpoint is we do have a summer student, Nicholas O'Reilly, who will be with the municipality for the duration of the summer. So he's certainly a resource for the committee to work with and homeowners to work with as they navigate their Heritage Registry journey. So I think it's just some really positive steps from that committee standpoint.
Any further? Position?
The council received the mayor and council member updates for information.
Say the mover, please. Councilor Bailey, second by Councilor Hurst, all in favor? Carried. Great. 931. Ms. Whitebox. Was it Justine or Justin? I can't even do that. It's board will get in trouble.
Three, Mr. Chair, this report is to provide council with proposed housekeeping amendments to the outdoor swimming pool enclosure bylaw to enable staff to submit an application to the Ministry of the Attorney General's office to introduce set fines under Part 1 of the Preventable Offences Act.
Did you want to speak to the problem we're trying to fix at all? Council's indulgence?
So without set fines, the enforcement of this bylaw would be a Part 3 summons, which is a very different process, and it would require summoning the person to court. So the set fines can be used as part of an educational tool, which is first and foremost that we want to inform the public of the bylaw, but set fines are an interim step. If it's a one-off or can be dealt with through a set fine educational tool.
Excellent, thank you. The resolutions.
That report ADM 2023-027 regarding the outdoor swimming pool enclosure bylaw, housekeeping amendments and set fines be received, and the council gives 3 readings to bylaw 2023-030, being a bylaw to amend the township's outdoor swimming pool enclosure bylaw 2018-018. Attached to this report is Schedule A.
Gonna move that, please. School, second by Councilor Hurst. Comments, questions? All in favor? That's carried. All right, Ms. Whitebox, 9.3.4. 2. Skipped it. Sorry. I'm sorry, Justin. I'm trying to get my bearings on 2 different things here. Way you go.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this report is to provide council with a request for relief from the township sign bylaw 9/91 to permit a portable and illuminated sign for a one-day special event at 21 Main Street.
Resolution, please.
The report ADM 2023-028 entitled Sign Variance Request for a Special Event at 21 Queen Street be received, and the council either approve or deny the one-day request for relief from the sign bylaw 0991 to permit a portable and illuminated sign for the special event at 21 Queen Street, subject to no concerns being received from the MTO.
Remove that, please. Councilor School, second. Councilor Goyette. Anybody have any concerns or around that one or objections? No. All in favor? Carried. All right, 9.3.3. Again, Justine, I got that on right this time.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this report is to provide council with the Heritage Advisory Committee's proposed 2022-2026 goals and objectives for council's approval and endorsement.
Can you read the resolution, please?
That report ADM 2023-029 entitled 2022 to 2026 Heritage Advisory Committee Goals and Objectives be received, and the council approve the Heritage Advisory Goals and Objectives as presented or amended.
All right, we'll move that. Mr. Harris, second by Councilor Goida. Questions or comments?
I don't have any questions. I just have a comment. I think the committee has already achieved a lot in preparing those draft statements of cultural value, which is really good. But I'm also really happy to see a subcommittee being formed for engagement opportunities and for education opportunities. It seems as though there's a lot of sort of misinformation out there in terms of what it means for a property to be designated. And Councillor Hurst spoke to this, the open house meeting that was a couple of weeks ago. That wasn't the easiest thing to navigate. Staff did a great job, but it just shows that there isn't quite a clear understanding of what that means for designation to take place. So I think that education component will go hand in hand with the work, and I'm happy to see that. So good luck.
Any comments? That's really.
Yeah, just a question, with the student that's been hired, or how does this fit into the, I'm calling it sort of a work plan, but is the student part join some of these subcommittees, or are they just doing something totally unrelated to what's in the goals and objectives here?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the Heritage Summer student will be working with the Heritage Register and Bill 23 subcommittees. And then in addition to that work, they will also be working on creating the draft cultural heritage statements for the remaining properties on our register based on a priority list that will be developed.
So the heavy, the heavy stuff. Okay, great, thanks.
Further comments? All in favor? Carried. Is that going to be closed? Just 5 minutes or 1 minute. All right, let's go. All right, 9.3.4, Soy Fox.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. This report is regarding correspondence we received from the city of Guelph related to the expression of interest for the property 880 Victoria Road South, which is located in the township of Lynch. Council may recall a year or more ago, the city of Guelph council considered the deterioration of this structure at their meeting. And at the same meeting, there was some capital funding that was requested to stabilize this property. So the report details what the city of Guelph has approved in terms of that funding for the capital upgrades. It also outlines the expression of interest that has been posted. So this again was committed to be received by the township, by the city of Guelph when it was available, in order for our heritage committee as well as our council to review it, make any recommendations, things like that. And staff are proposing that if should council have any recommendations for the use of this property, that they just be submitted to the city and city council, rather than through the actual proposal, through the expression of interest. That's quite a lengthy process and not appropriate for the council to necessarily use that process. So again, this report looks at what the Heritage Committee has advised the council in terms of what their end use would like to see for this property. And this report again just is seeking direction from council as to what we should be submitting to the city.
Suggestions?
Well, I think in terms of use, I think the Heritage Committee has put together a pretty good list. When I saw photos, I thought of the Badenoch Community Center. It has kind of like resonates with that same kind of use, and which I think would fit in with the recommendations that the Heritage Committee has given in terms of just commercial or recreation. But that aside, I guess the use aside, I guess, first of all, there's two things. I don't understand. I don't really understand what the expression of interest is achieving. I don't really, I've never seen anything like that come through before. It seems kind of confusing that they're can maintain ownership, but they're like, I kind of just don't get it. But I also am just wondering if they're trying to keep the heritage features intact and they want to use that, ensure that the heritage features are intact, why they're not designating it, or maybe they are and that's not part of it, but I find this whole thing very confusing.
So through you, Mr. Chair, my take on the expression of interest is that they're looking for an end user for the building and just the very surrounding lands, not the whole property. That user would be a tenant, but they also would be responsible for the upgrades to the facility to bring it to the state that it could be used for their use. So that has identified septic well, the full house needs to be like extensive renovations. So part of the proposal that they're looking for is not just the end use, but how are you going to upgrade the building? How are you going to fund it? What's the background on your business to ensure that that can take place? And then in respect to the designation, just in very preliminary conversations with the City of Guelph staff, again, so not with their council, there doesn't seem to be an appetite to designate the property. Although when you read the expression of interest, it does speak quite a bit to whatever use or renovation takes place, needing to maintain those attributes. So again, maybe a little bit of a disconnect between the designation, but then what they're describing in the expression of interest.
I have something I want to say. Councilor Spills?
I would support the recommendations of the Heritage Advisory Committee that will go on that. I guess the question I have for staff is, since this building is in our township, we have a right to interfere with what Guelph wants to designate or not designate that property, or is that all within our purview?
So through you, Mr. Chair, it is the municipalities, it is council chooses to designate properties. So the property owner does have an appeal process through the OLT, but it is the municipalities council.
So following up on that, do we know the historical heritage features that how valuable this is for the community, or is it something that we haven't had an assessment done yet?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we would have had a preliminary site visit with our Heritage Committee at some point in the last number of years. It is one of the most early homesteads in Puslinch, so I would say there is some significance to this structure just in terms of being one of the first homesteads. But there would, if it was added to our priority list for designation, we could do that, and we would want to probably get started on that as soon as possible, so we could do that in-depth work.
Thank you. Councilor Bailey?
Thank you. Yeah, not a lot of questions. I like the comments that Heritage Advisory Committee put out. I think it gives it a broad, range of uses that seem reasonable. Looking for, the goal is to try to find a tenant or somebody who would want to do something with this property. So do we know what sort of public engagement is happening, or how this is getting advertised to, there could be someone, a resident that has a really great idea. How do we let them know that this is an option that they can be, following through on?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I can't speak to what the City of Guelph is doing in terms of their public engagement, but there's lots of opportunities for Puslinch. We have a lot of tools.
So is that from the Heritage Committee then? What sort of outreach through social media or something, or do we should I be giving suggestions?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think at the bottom of this report, staff may have included some of the engagement opportunities that are being suggested. So it's social media, resharing the expression of interest for potential Puslinch organizations. In addition to that, we could use Engage Puslinch, so our Bang the Table software, if you want to, if council is comfortable leaving it with staff.
For sure. Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Counselor Hurst?
You have no questions.
I would support a resolution from anyone here to direct the Heritage Committee to designate this a heritage property. You can quickly Google it. City of Guelph was in ownership of a GRCA property. It was a stone house. It was left to its own demise, and then it was vandalized and they quickly demolished it. It did not have designation, so I have concerns that depending on the use and the fact that now that this is up to the public, you know, people could break in, vandalize it and you know, before we know it, the building's being demolished. So I definitely support getting that designation in place so that the future tenants have a responsibility to maintain it. So that's my comments.
Yeah, I guess, Mr. Mayor, my line of question is regarding, is this a modified heritage site? And what I understand from Courtney is that it is, as reviewed at some time. Do we have the documentation associated with it?
So through you, Mr. Chair, we will have some documentation. It is listed at the moment, so that suggests that the Heritage Committee has gone into the site and taken some photos, but until we actually look at that file, we won't know how much further information we need.
There's no willing to move that that this building be reviewed by the Heritage Committee for inclusion in our registry.
Any seconder for that? Counselor Hurst? Comments?
Yeah, I would support that. I would just maybe, I guess, maybe a little bit to play devil's advocate. Just given the sheer number of properties on our registry and sort of prioritize. If this is already going to be protected, or I guess in theory protected by the city, maybe it is better use of resources to protect properties that don't have that sort of assurance, but that's a discussion that can happen anywhere.
Counselors can take that as a takeaway.
That's a good point.
Yeah, just following that, I think I'd like to leave it up to Heritage to figure out where in the priority listing this building could maybe go, but I support getting it designated at some point.
Counselors?
I'm good. I think that's good feedback for the committee.
All in favor? Carried. All right, we're gonna break now until 1 p.m. and we'll return and go into closed.
The council should go into closed session under section 239 of the Municipal Act for the purpose of 14.1 confidential report regarding information that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and that's relating to aggregate compliance issues. 14.2 confidential report regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and that's related to a Planning Act application. And 14.3 confidential report regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And this is related to a human resource matter.
All right, can I get a mover for that, please? Councilor Spolin, second by Councilor Goida, all in favor? That's carried. All right, we're closed.
Resolutions to read.
The council moves into open session at 2:36 p.m.
Good mover for that, Councilor Spolin, second by Councilor Hurst, all in favor? Carried. Next.
The council receives the confidential report regarding information that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and that is related to aggregate compliance issues. Confidential report regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and that's relating to a Planning Act application. Confidential report regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and that's related to a human resource matter. And whereas the existing township short and long-term benefits program is not equitable for all employees, that council authorized staff to adjust weekly earnings for short and long-term disability by providing top-up payments equal to 75% of regular weekly earnings, retroactive to the start of the leave for the applicable employees currently on leave, And further, that council directs staff to investigate options to implement a policy or an adjustment to the township benefit program that is more equitable to all employees on short-term disability. And finally, that council directs staff to proceed as directed.
All right, can I get a mover for that, please? Councilor Goyda, seconder, Councilor Bailey. Any questions or comments before we approve it? All in favor? Carried. All right, I believe we were on 9.3.5, correct? This white box, whenever you're ready.
So through you, Mr. Chair, this report is relating to a proposed community guide and business directory and associated programs. Council has identified greater involvement in our economic development initiatives as a corporate work plan item for 2023. And so in response to that, staff have been working on a proposed program that includes a community guide and business directory. And it as well includes a spotlight article program where participating businesses in the township would fill out information associated with their business, why it's important to shop local, and provide the township with some photos of their business, as well as some information on any special events they may have. And as part of that program, staff would look to develop kind of those spotlight articles and look at our engagement tools and paid advertisements in order to promote local businesses. So this has been outlined in the report. We also have a sample community guide that I'm happy to share on the screen and just flip through what the digital guide would look like. And as well, we've included those sample spotlight articles. There's three options within the report with costing for council's consideration, as well as the suggestion to reach out to or to use funds for economic development through the County of Wellington to help fund this program. So through you, Mr. Chair, if I can share my screen and just flip through this guide digitally.
Means this guy,
It's the digital version.
but I know you want to do so the public sees it. So
That's great. Well, the noise will make sense in a moment when I pull up this. And so when I get this on the screen, you'll notice we're using a software tool. It does include ads. We're not using the paid program right now, but it is included in our costing to purchase the paid program, where this kind of banner at the top would disappear and there wouldn't be ads. So it does make a page turning noise, the software. And so you can see we've just set out the guide to include some township resources at the front end. And then we flip into some of our business directory samples, including professional services, breaking out food and restaurants, shopping. We've made note to include our industrial community, important part of our economic sustainability. And then we get into some of the County of Wellington services that are available to residents as well. What's been utilized to develop this guide has been our rebranding that the township engaged in, and it was a very fulsome project that took place in 2018. We had a advisory group put together. There was a lot of public engagement to develop our branding for the township, and so the way the guide and the content is displayed is in line with that brand. And I'm happy to answer any council questions.
you and your team was responsible for putting this together.
So, yes, a big thanks to Justine Brotherston and her team for putting together the guide and as well as the sample of the spotlight article. So they've really spearheaded this.
Great job. Looks amazing. Very proud. Good. Mr. Goida.
Yeah, great job. This is like, it's beyond awesome. It's really, really good. I think that it is, it's gonna be really great for the township. I think it is a better and more complete sort of evolution of the shop local program that we had. I think it's gonna be a tremendous benefit to the community. I like that it's not just a business directory, it's kind of like a one-stop shop for all local information. It's really like, it's just all encompassing and really straightforward. It ties in really well to the economic development presentation we heard earlier today. Yeah, I can't, it's so awesome. Thank you. In terms of the profile features, I think that's a really great initiative as well. I liked the idea of putting it in our council agenda packages because that allows council the opportunity to learn about some of the businesses as well. I was wondering, so we heard the presentation from County Economic Development about them going out to some of these businesses to kind of engage with them or interview them kind of. I don't know if there's any opportunity. I know that the plan is to kind of just ask them to send in pictures and stories, but maybe there's some collaboration there with the county that could take place when they're going out to these businesses to do that already anyways. Not sure, just a thought. I liked the idea of the engagement piece, having sort of an open house and having businesses come and perhaps contribute their ideas and thoughts. I really like the idea of working with the county to have like annual open houses with the businesses. And in terms of the cost option, I originally was thinking just digital versions. That seems to be the way things are going. But then now that I have this physically in my hands and seeing how good it looks, I actually think this would be really great to send to every member, every household in the community. Although there's a huge cost difference to do that, if the county is willing to work with us on that, I think it would be really valuable.
Mrs. Wilson, yes, a couple of questions. They're scheduling a public open house meeting for this. Is this, you mentioned this, they also mentioned the general public. Would it be an idea for them to ask the public what they think? If they want to receive a hard copy or are they happy with the digital copy? Is that a question we can ask them rather than put the onus on us?
So through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, at the suggested open house,
Yes.
just ask if this is something that they'd see benefit from. And a hard
Having a
copy?
hard copy versus digital copy.
We can certainly ask, yes, and just, I guess, depending on the date of when that would be scheduled, just making sure that we have it for our budget process, just in the event that the county doesn't cover the full funding, if that's the route we choose to go, just making sure we kind of schedule that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with going to every household. Another way of looking at it, perhaps this could be issued to every household every 2 years, and considering saving some money. The other question I had is the form factor, like this is 8.5 by 11. Is there any consideration giving something smaller or something more handy? This seems it's nice to have, but something a little bit smaller might be a little more handy. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this sort of thing. It's like tablet, you want a tablet this size or this size, it depends on the person.
Easier reading.
So through you, Mr. Chair, we did get costing, they did offer us the different sizes, so it's basically the size folded in half. So the next size down, I believe, is just an 8 by 11 folded in half, so it would be one sheet in half. So it's difficult, the pricing may end up being the same, you may have to have more pages in that
Yeah.
event, so we could look at costing.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I just want to make sure we get the right thing. You know, it's a big thing or it's a little thing. It's all like personal preference, but Not sure, that might be another question I want to ask the community if they would like to emphasize.
Mr. Bailey?
Just piggybacking on that, are the number of items, so, you know, this many, accurate to say what the title is? Do we know if it would be this thick with all the actual businesses we have and all the information that's going to be in here?
So through you, Mr. Chair, no, we don't know. So we have to start that process. Our next step would be to go and use the County of Wellington site. It does break down the businesses into like subsections, so by industry. So we would have to take a look at what makes most sense. As another, just an information, when you add, you have to add 4 pages at a time. So if you're thinking front and back. So as we add pages, we're going to want to make sure we have enough to fill those pages. So this, if council gives us direction to proceed, this may look a little bit different the next track we bring, and maybe a little longer. It may, so again, we'll have to look at those detailed costing.
And then I guess I just have a question about how flexible, if we were to do, say, it every 2 years, you want to keep the township information consistent, but then the business part might change. So is there a way to do kind of an insert in it where you leave, you know, leave the consistent information there, but then you're bringing in new information? Is there flexibility in that, in this guide?
So through you, Mr. Chair, it would be like we would be printing regardless. So we would, like, we don't send this out to a designer. We have in-house designers. So all of that's pretty simple, and we can definitely use like a stock template with our information, making sure that it stays consistent and then making those changes to the directory.
Great. No, I think this is fantastic. Like I said, I've used the old one that volunteers did in the community probably 20 years ago and still reference that. The only thing I would love to see is actual photos of people in the community, rather than doing any stock photos. Would just be my comment.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that that's a great idea. It's an initiative in general that our communications kind of program is looking at. I will say that that takes time to work through that. So probably if this goes for 2024, we're going to see some stock photos with images of people, but we will certainly ensure to have any in the landscapes and things as lunch.
So on that note, I know in, is it in the Engage Twist Lunch? One of the projects was having members of the community submit photos from around the township. Or could we kind of boost that project again to see if we can get some photos from people in the community? Perhaps.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think that's a great idea. I also think if we do move forward with the like spotlight article program, we're going to receive lots of photos from our businesses through that, and just, you know, making those requests if we find good ones to use.
Great. No, looking forward to seeing this.
Yeah, really well done. I think my initial reaction was, wow, this is really good. And similar to Councillor Bailey, I was given a really old directory when I first moved to the municipality, and it's still in our drawer in our kitchen. And so it's utilized. So I think a couple quick comments here. I think this is a great community engagement tool. I think the residents within the community, you know, we have residents that have been here their entire life and residents that are new to the community. And I think this is a fantastic opportunity to share all sorts of really pertinent information, whether you've been here your entire life or you're a new resident, to see all the value in the services. I'd encourage staff, I'm maybe similar to Councillor Sabulis's comments around print versus non-print, but I think I see it more on in my day job. We do an annual directory, and for years I thought, oh, we're going to stop doing print versions. We're going to go entirely digital. And the number of requests I get for actually having a physical copy in people's hands, it's huge. And I'm sold on having a hard copy. I think from my perspective, I think and I thought the cost here is reasonable compared to other stuff that I've seen out there that I've priced out. And I like the fact that there's a digital option, so you can make updates in real time. You know, when you do a print version, it's time stamped to the date of the printing, but in between, if there are edits to say business information or what have you, you can update it as a live version on the website. So I think I would very much like the digitization of it. I believe there's a photo club. Is there not a 4-H photo club within the community? I thought I saw in the Whistling Pioneer that there was. To me, that's like, let's reach out to them and ask them for photos. Like that's a great opportunity to engage youth in the community with. And they get to see their work published. Like that's a really exciting thing from my standpoint. And I would just pursue co-funding. I think if we can include some county information in there, this is a great opportunity to amplify both municipal information as well as county information, and I would be shocked if they weren't supportive. But that's my 2 cents.
I need to get down the weeds. I think it's a great project. I don't want to blow it up at all. I think it's wonderful, especially if we go to the yearly printing, then staff can bring reports and modify changes. So I'm very good with the hard copy. So one thing I'd like to see in there, and or at least my staff considers under the County of Wellington Services, point to the Recycle Coach app. That's a great app for avoiding waste. The only problem is recycling and waste is going to change this year because it's going to produce a responsibility. So fortunately, when you do print it, it may quickly come out of current, won't be as current. But the app will still be working, it just may not include recycling, so that's a good one. Crime Stoppers, hopefully we can have that in here. I put down, county roads department has a reporting tool for speed concerns on county roads. I would hope that we could include that in it. And I also would like consideration of a public works reporting tool for our local roads, local service requests. Even just phone numbers, right? So even we had that one complaint recently, garbage not picked up. But, the phone number to call is in here, that might help residents. I mean, I know that's getting a little nitpicky. The only other thing I would suggest is that the mayor's message is a little repetitive. So, we can tidy that up. Speech.
Delivery. Yeah.
And I think it's excellent. So council, option 3 would be the yearly, at least initially, contact the county for the funding. We had that delegation today that referenced the 25K. I don't know if that money's already spent on something else, but hopefully there's opportunities for that to be utilized. So are you comfortable with option 3? Yes. Else to make a decision on that resolution.
So within the resolution, it's the option, which is great. We'll provide detailed costing during the 2024 budget process based on the option selection, but also as we work through the number of businesses. We'd also like to engage with the county on the financial support, and then just proceeding with the action items listed in the report. We'd like some direction, if council's all right with that. Those are located just above the charts with the costing. So there's a number of actions there with some dates.
Can you go through this?
Again, so the first one is to engage with the businesses currently listed on the county business directory. So we've included a one-time mailing cost for around $150 just to mail out that this is something that we're thinking of doing, where we're looking to engage them. There's no cost to them to participate. Then we're looking to engage with the community as a whole through the fall edition of the community newsletter. So that goes out, it's a fall newsletter, but it will go in July. So again, just looking to put something in that newsletter about this program and engaging like particularly our home industries who may not be listed on the county business directory. Next, schedule a public open house. And this would be specific to this business directory and customer profile features and to promote participation. And we will make note of the things Councilor Sikoulas had mentioned in relation to asking for their opinion. The next is we'd like to attend the farmers market sometime this summer to promote participation again. There's likely a lot of groups at the farmers market, agricultural little stands that you want to be a part of this. And finally, it's engaging with the County Economic Development Department in order to schedule an annual open house with lunch focused, where they would come in and attend, and we would bring everyone together in that way.
So you just looking for endorsement of those action items?
Looking for you guys to say, yes, please go ahead and we'll do these things, yes.
Any opposition to those items? Any additions?
Councilor Wood made a good point is that the county is going ahead and meeting these businesses face to face, and somehow we can piggyback on that and utilize that opportunity to.
Actually, take that in.
So I can add that to the action items that we engage with the county to determine timelines and ask if there's an opportunity to do that. She called it just
BRNE,
BRNE, okay.
right? Business retention expansion program, BRNE.
Face to face.
It's part of the BRNE collaborate with us.
We're gonna be including this, community groups in this directive. Soccer, baseball, or football group, or. Because that's how you get involved in the community, is through community groups. If I was new to the community and I wondered how could I get involved, oh, there's personal garden gnomes or pulling weeds at the millennial garden, maybe I'll go out and help. Or there's a camera club, right? Or there's pickleball, or there's signing the kids up for baseball. Where
It is a
where else would
community
they
guide.
go to connect with that?
Is a community guide, so I don't,
I think recreation's a big part of rural community. You know, where, how can I get involved? I'm secluded, I live out in
yeah, we
rural.
can, yeah, so why don't we look at including the page or whatever for the, well, we have that list on the, either they get the reduction in fees or
Yeah.
recognize, right? So.
Kind of already on the list.
Yeah, absolutely. With you, Mr. Chair, we can include those. I want to make sure we don't miss anyone. So we'll start with the user fees and charges, and then maybe the communications policy has some other information in it. I just want to make sure if there's any other groups that staff maybe aren't aware of. If there are any, kind of like it would be appreciated to know. It may impact the layout of the guide is all, if there's more than thought, so.
I would hope it would get captured in the public open house. Go to, right? By the time we get to that point and with all the engagement. Spoke share.
Anything else? Resolution.
At report ADM 2023-031 entitled the proposed community guide and business directory and associated programs to be received. And the council directs staff to proceed with option 3 as identified in the report. And proceed with the next steps as identified in the report. And the council directs staff to provide a detailed costing during the 2024 budget process based on the option 3 selected. And the council directs staff to engage with the County of Wellington requesting financial support for the program commencing in 2024. And requesting to participate in the BRNE and collaborate with the County of Wellington on West Lunch Community Guide development. And further, that council directs staff to connect with the 4-H photo club for local photos to utilize within the guide.
Excellent. Please.
It's for each, just local,
Yeah.
local camera.
Seconder, Councilor Hurst. All in favor? Carried. I believe we're into correspondence. Is that correct? This way, and we have 10.1, so we're just receiving that for information here now.
This is the
Euro.
related to the aggregate resources. This one.
Oh, that's the big one. Sorry,
You can put anything up on the screen,
you have something?
just the comments. And
Okay. Oh, let's go on. What do we stand? Remind me.
received correspondence. It was put together by Councilor Lewis and the other leaders.
You want to share that or?
I have it to share.
All right, so the ERO posted on how we want to tackle this. you have a list? Or?
Like a list of comments. No, I just have, I actually don't know whose comments these are. It doesn't actually specify in our agenda. There was a page in our agenda that has pre-written comments. Maybe they're yours, Mayor.
There's a combination of Councilor Walmers and, Tamo and just, yeah, it's, and I believe, these ones, Councilor Schools,
You know, this is a one page, I think they're more like their comments.
Are they?
Discussion points, it says.
I don't know.
And I can't even reference the correct page because I'm working on this off of the non-addendum. We can help agenda.
Yeah, these are the ones I typed up a while ago, so. Anyways,
Anyway, I guess overall, the comments that I guess are the ones that you had typed up a long time ago, are very well done. They're kind of broad and overarching. And then the other discussion paper that we have has also some broad comments, but then very specific ones. With the exception of the comments, there's 2 columns worth of comments. With the exception of the few, they're very similar. I am in support of all of it. I don't really have anything else to add, so I don't know. I'm not really sure of the best approach to go through it all, but.
yeah, I'm tired. Councilor Schools, what are your thoughts?
Well, I provided my comments, so those are my comments to pick apart, to discuss, whatever.
Go for it. She's been.
So I don't know if everybody's had a chance to go through it. I really don't want to go through page by page, word by word. I think the more important part is the discussion under examples 3.3 where comments I put in and comments by Manager Bowman, Councilmanager Bowman. So and you may have differing opinions on those, whereas the other stuff is pretty straightforward interpretation of bill. It's all legislative, engine sets and legislative, part of enforcement equipment, portable concrete asphalt plants. It's all standard stuff involved around building. Whereas these examples of changes that are not significant, I think we have to show the ministry that even though they think it's not significant, we are thinking it's significant.
Okay, no, I agree with that. I mean, Courtney, do you have a way of taking the council's read my comments, council's comments, the other members provided and kind of tabulating them, submitting on our behalf, or there was nothing in the council's rules? The only thing that I mentioned it to the council's rules was might be confusing the arrow postings. The allowing a recycled aggregate. Is that in this one, John, that we were talking about? And remember I mentioned how we don't want recycled aggregate operation in perpetuity. Is that in the DRO?
It's in this one.
Yeah, okay, so. Anyways, I'll get to that, but for the most part, I was supportive of Council Schools's position, and I believe you guys have been able to read mine. If there's anything in there you're opposed to, then maybe now's the time to speak up to the staff. I don't know, it's a lot to read through the process. Courtney, you'll do that.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'll read through and then I will read through the information listed on the agenda as well and compile something so there's not any redundancy in what we're submitting. And that's no problem. We can do that and get it submitted. Right now, if there's anything that's not agreed upon, we can take it out of this so that it's not included.
Okay, so any comments? It's
I
great.
did just wanna mention that the commenting period closes July the 13th, and we do have a council meeting July the 12th. So if it makes more sense, we have all these comments that we're mostly in agreement with anyways. Maybe it makes sense
Yeah.
to draft them all together in one document that we then just endorse at our
Thanks, Council.
So one of the items, I agree with that. Let me find this thing. Around. Anyways, so. The concern is if, allowing recycled asphalt to come onto an aggregate site. If the site reaches near exhaustion of aggregate resource in the site, they stop extraction. Then they just continue to use it as a recycled aggregate site. So somehow, our comment should be based on. The recycled asphalt component should be on a time frame, say 5 years. And then to get a renewal, they have to show through their self-reporting that significant extraction has occurred on site for the aggregate recycling to continue. Because that's the concern is that once they get the permission to do the aggregate the asphalt recycling, that just continues in perpetuity, and that's not the intent of aggregate sites. They are an interim land use. So somehow through the comments provided, staff tabulate a comment that addresses that concern. Does that make sense?
He's just a library. I have your words.
Oh, can you? Yeah.
They said the concern I have is the operator could claim small amounts of aggregate still exist in the property and continue to use silt in perpetuity. Site in perpetuity rather, with no intention of mining the remaining aggregate. We take the position that when the aggregate reserve reaches the equivalent of that allowed limit of recycling material, no new recycled asphalt may be imported.
So that was one option. I don't know, was that?
And then the other one, you said perhaps recycle asphalt permissions be tied to 5-year permit. A renewal is based on provision that operator can provide substantial aggregate mining has occurred on the site through the compliance.
So I guess submit those comments, but these, I think that's one major red flag is that we'll look at the McMillan pit. It's, we had that correspondence on the last agenda. There hasn't been any extraction for over 20 years, and they say there's resource left in one bank. Well, if it had land, they can use it as a recycled asphalt area, so that's not desirable. And this is part of the discussion of that task force that I'm part of too. So I guess we're in the spot where we're just gonna submit our comments to you and you're gonna bring it back July 12th. That works.
In my comments, I have 2 questions. That staff is saying that the ministry is saying something, and then I asked if the current bylaw cover this. One is to do with increased hours of operation. The applicant demonstrates that changes comply with the local new bylaws. And the question, do our bylaws cover increased hours of operation? Or is that strictly a provincial item? This is on the table. It's 4th last page, 5th last page.
So our bylaws only have noise. They have a time frame, 11 PM is not.
Through Mr. Chair, we probably have to take a better look. Our bylaw sets its schedules based on location and zoning of the property, so I'd want to take a better look. I also want to see if our bylaw has any exemptions for properties licensed under the ARA. I'm not sure. So I just I would want to have a better look before responding.
And the other item was installing portable concrete plants or portable hoses equipment. The comment from ministries permitted by municipal zoning for site as an accessory use. I didn't realize we had that. I asked one question, staff, do we have the flexibility? We can. We have a big camera that I wasn't aware of.
Staff can take a look at that too for when we report back on July 12th.
Any further comments? So you have a resolution. Mr. Fox?
The council received correspondence item 10.1, ERO posting 0196767, proposed changes to the Aggregate Resources Act. And the council directs staff to compile comments received into a staff report for consideration at the July 12th meeting in order to submit comments by the July 13th deadline.
Perfect. I'll move that, please. Councilor Hurst, Willis, all in favor? Carried. Now we're on to 10.2. The resolution for that one.
The council receives correspondence item 10.2, Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry response regarding request for exemption under the Conservation Authorities Act. And that council appoint Councillor Blank to the Halton Conservation Board of Directors for the remainder of the 2022 to 2026 term of council.
Anybody have a suggestion on who that should be? Councilor Willis?
This Council Bailey. She lives in the area that's governed by them. I think it'll be appropriate.
All in favor? 3, carried, 4. He moved it. Councilor Goyda seconded it.
Willing participant.
Can I just say something?
Sure. As the new rep on HTA.
I just want to know, let everyone know, I did reach out to Steve Gilmore, who has been our conservation Halton rep since 2006. So he's actually been really involved for over 17 years with Conservation Halton. So I just wanted to recognize all the work that he's done up to now. And I know this comes with some mixed emotions for him, you know, that kind of didn't get to leave on his terms. It's, you know, he's not allowed to be coming back kind of. But anyway, I'd be happy to take on the role. And try to fill Steve's shoes.
Could we send a letter of appreciation, thank him for his service? Please.
Is he aware of the reason why we're doing it?
Yeah.
I think we included it in that same resolution.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, 10.3.
The council received correspondence item 10.3, Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry response regarding council resolution 2022-335 regarding CBM aggregate peer review for information.
May you move it back, please? Mr. Goyda, second by Councilor Willis, all in favor? It's carried. I believe we have bylaws next.
The following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2023-030 being a bylaw to amend the outdoor swimming pool enclosure bylaw.
May you move it, please? Councilor Hurst, second by Councilor Bailey, all in favor? It's carried. Announcements, anyone? Candidates coming up. Look at the next one. Candidate. Speaking of the microphone, so you can hear you.
Just recognizing Canada Day celebrations are coming up and just wondering if that's still happening at the community center.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can take a look at the construction schedule. As council is aware, the parks construction has started. So that's an exciting project that has commenced. So we'll have to look at what's scheduled to see if those activities can happen at the PCC.
Okay.
Anything else? Sure.
Just for Public Works, I have noticed a number of the construction signs placed up around the region on some significant capital projects, and I just thought they were well done. It's good. I think those are really positive things that people, when they drive by, they see the work taking place. So
Excellent. Great. I guess he's not on the call anymore, is he? I did notice the calcium truck when I was coming here, so the dust suppression has either commenced or is nearing fruition, so that's good. Any business arising from the closed session we had earlier? Oh, and no motion. New business. Inventory bylaw, please.
That the following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council, bylaw 2023-031, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of the township of Pleasant at its meeting held on the 14th day of June 2023.
And mover, please. Councilor Goytis and Councilor Bowles. All in favor, carried. And adjourned, I believe.
That council hereby adjourns at 3:17 p.m.
We're gonna move for that, please. Councilor Hurst, second by Councilor Bailey, all in favor, carried. You have my.